Number 10. Howlett. Howlett is another one of my favorite Wolverine alternates. He hails from Earth 12025, known for being his own home universe. That's how popular he is. That's how we know what that universe is, just based on this one character. He was created by Greg Pak and Mike McCone, and made his first appearance in 2004's Astonishing X-Men in issue number 44. In this reality, James Howlett becomes the Governor General of Canada, serving both the Queen of England and Canada. He often teams up with the Hercules of this reality, and the two even have a romantic relationship together. Tragically, their romance initially had to be kept a secret because both of the people they served, the Queen and Zeus in Hercules' case, banned them from being in a relationship together, each for their own different reasons. And even when they did reveal their love, there was hell to pay.
In at 9, Old Man Logan. 50 years later, Logan lives with his wife Maureen, his son Scotty, and his daughter Jade on a plot of land in Sacramento of what used to be California, but is now a part of Hulkland, and no, that's not an amusement park. He requires money to pay his rent to his landlords for his territory, his landlords being the descendants of Bruce Banner, you know, the Hulk gang, who are the product of just a messed up procreation situation. I don't think I can say the actual words on YouTube, but you get what I'm saying. He refuses to sell his children's toys to pay for rent, so Logan is shown as just, you know, a broken man who refuses to fight, even though, you know, he definitely could. He's living peacefully, but then when he realizes he's unable to pay, that's when the Hulk gang will not accept a plea deal to pay double next month. So yeah, considering how they're inappropriately and without permissionly conceived children of Hulk and She-Hulk, which is Bruce's cousin, you know that this isn't going to go well. They confront him on his lack of payment, violently beat him, and then just... oh god, it's such a messed up story. Logan entertains visions of gutting the eldest Hulk brother Otis as he takes the beating, but yeah, the Hulk gang later kills his family, so Logan kills all the Hulk gang. It's a messed up version, but pretty iconic, but still, yikes. What the hell, Marvel? God, don't put this in the MCU. Thank God this wasn't a what if episode. Jeez.
Number 8. 1602. King James is the alternate version of Wolverine that exists in the 1602 reality, or rather, the 1602 reality as it exists in God Emperor Doom's Battle World, which appeared during the 2015 Secret Wars event. This version of Wolverine also has claws like his comic book counterpart, but is a villain instead of a hero. He is one of the witch breed that Sarah and Angela hunt down, with Charles Xavier taking over for James after he is defeated.
In at 7, Ultimate Wolverine. In this reality, Wolverine suffers from amnesia, and as a result, there's little known about his early life, but what is known is both suspect and unverifiable. It is believed that at one point, Wolverine had a wife and child, but they were supposedly killed by Sabretooth. As both Wolverine and Sabretooth's memories have been tampered with in this past timeline, this claim is suspect. However, if both of their memories were altered, maybe it does have some validity. Wolverine did own a wedding ring that serves as his only link to his past, not the game. That's a whole other thing, that's a different channel. But this version of Wolverine has the healing factor, disease resistance, toxin resistance that, damn, I wish I had 2 years ago. Extended longevity, superhuman senses, stamina. The ladies love him because of that too. He has that agility, the reflexes, the classic adamantium laced skeleton, and retractable claws. He's experienced in hand-to-hand combat. He's an expert assassin. He can lift 800 pounds. Like, bro, come on, can you even lift? Spider-Man lifts twice that when he's taking it easy, okay? And that's not even in the symbiote suit, which I guess technically doesn't count and doesn't exactly exist. But you know what, let's ignore that. He's still cool.
Number 6. The Punisher. In the What If Wolverine one-shot issue number 1 from 2005, here we get to imagine what the world might have been like had Wolverine become Punisher instead of Frank Castle. The story is set a bit in the past and imagines what it would be like if Logan had lost his family and sought revenge. In this version of the tale, Wolverine goes up against Scarface, who has Logan's family killed. His wife in this universe is Silver Fox, and together the two had a son. Scarface also might be a character that you'll actually recognize from the main Marvel universe here. He's an alternate version of Logan's half-brother Dog, who you may know from the Wolverine origin story and comic series.
Halfway through into number 5, Wild Thing. On Earth 982, Rena was the new girl at a high school where some of the more popular girls tried to make her life miserable because, you know, it's high school, stating that she was the daughter of an immigrant and an unemployed biker, but her father is Logan. You know, Wolverine. So he picked her up from school on his bike, and opinions changed about her. Because, you know, yeah. Especially when they learned that her mother, Elektra, was a wealthy martial arts expert. Gotta love high school. However, life at high school wasn't just about dealing with the crowd, because as Wild Thing, Rena had to save a classmate from a high-speed kidnapper, defeat a computerized assassin, stop a demonic invader, and even fight one of her teachers when he was turned into a prime sentinel. Yeah, jeez. That's just high school. Another Sky High reference for those that are keeping track. Rena first appeared in J2 number 5 in 1998 and was created by Ron Lim and Tom DeFalco, even if technically she was created by Logan and Elektra, if you get the joke.
Number 4, Albert. I love Albert. He is the android alternate of Wolverine who was designed by Donald Pierce. Remember him? I remember him. Pierce created Albert along with LCD as part of a plan to trap Wolverine and have him destroyed. Fortunately for Wolverine, LCD was given the wrong level of sort of a logic machine in her mind and managed to find a way around her and Albert being used as such, ultimately freeing Albert and LCD in the end of their obligation to kill Logan. Albert was given his name by LCD after Albert Einstein, who she compared his intelligence to after she severely upgraded him all by herself.
Getting close to the end in number 3, Wolverine pool. Wade Wilson from Earth TRN 1946 was bonded with adamantium through his skeleton by the Weapons Plus program. He was later recruited by Deadpool or Dreadpool for his army, and he killed Deadpool Pulp before the arrival of Galactipool. I wish that this was a joke. He was attacked by Deadpool with a grenade from which bugs and other it ate all of his flesh, leaving behind only his skeleton and his claws, which was seemingly the same as Earth 616's Wolverine's skeleton and claws, but like it's a Deadpool. It's Deadpool in Wolverine's body. That also has the same scarring that regular Deadpool has. Wolverine Pool's healing factor is most likely weaker than 616 Wolverine or Deadpool's healing factor, which makes him less dangerous, but come on, okay? A combination of Wolverine and Deadpool is something that we should all fear, and most likely do, but I'm surprised Deadpool didn't make this a thing at the end of Deadpool 2 when he was correcting everything that he had done wrong. He should have done this, that would have been funny.
Number 2, Talon. Laura Kinney is obviously one of my favorite versions of the Wolverine character, and she herself has also technically been Wolverine. Initially known as X-23, Laura was actually created to be a clone of Logan. Her mother, Sarah Kinney, initially tried to create a clone of Logan, but was unsuccessful due to the Y chromosome being damaged. Instead, she attempted to compensate for this by using some of her own genetic material to supplement the parts of the genetic sequence that were basically damaged and missing, creating a female clone instead. It worked, but her work was damaged by her rival, Dr. Xander Rice, forcing Sarah to become a surrogate for the clone if she wanted to save her work. Sarah did just that, and X-23 was born. For years, X-23 was raised to be only a weapon, but eventually, after the members of the program turned on each other, she was able to secure her freedom. Unfortunately, along with her freedom came loss. Loss of her purpose in the world, and loss of the few people involved in the program who had genuinely cared for her, including her mother, Sarah, who named Laura with her last dying breath. Later, Laura would go on to track down Wolverine and attempt to kill him, seeing herself and her genetic father as nothing more than deadly and dangerous weapons. However, through meeting Logan, X-23 also found a sense of family, and eventually would even come to join the X-Men team. And I mean, spoiler alert, she doesn't end up killing Wolverine, in case you didn't know. Currently, she goes by the codename of Talon.
And finally, in at number 1, Dark Claw. Logan Wayne is obviously a combination of Bruce Wayne and Logan, being first introduced in Marvel vs. DC number 3. At 5 years old, after witnessing his parents' death at the hands of an armed robber, Logan Wayne was sent to live with his uncle in Alberta, Canada. I'm sorry, dude, Alberta sucks. His uncle was a member of the RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for those of you who use the Imperial system, and was ambushed and killed by poachers a short time after Logan's arrival. After the death of his uncle, Logan was sent to live in a home run by nuns, and as soon as he was old enough, he enlisted in the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force. I don't know if they have an acronym, but it just felt right. Logan was submitted to the Weapon X project, which was a Canadian super soldier program, and then from there, it's kind of the same thing. His bones were bonded to adamantium, and he discovered that he was a metamutant, which is just the meta mutants in this dimension, but yeah, it's Batman and Wolverine, okay? He has all the powers of Logan and a clawcopter and clawmobile. That's awesome. I want this in the MCU. If they're fixing the DCEU so that we can do this, that would be great.
Number 10, Dogpool. We'll start off on a cute note, rather. Wade Wilson of Earth 103-173, aka Dogpool, made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Corps, Issue 3. Wilson was a dog being used as a test subject for Mascara X. Now, I love this version because it brings to light the animal testing for beauty products that happens, Mascara X taking place of the evil Weapon X in this story. So after the test went south, they thought the dog didn't survive. His body turned all corpse-like, it wasn't breathing, horrible stuff, so they got rid of it. But those healing abilities brought him back to life. He then broke out of the garbage bag and started walking around again. I thought cats were the only ones with 9 lives. What a sight to see. Now, these circus performers did see this. They were driving by and just happened to see this dead dog come back to life, so they used it to make some moolah. He became the main act of their circus, appropriately named the Death-Defying Hound. He was a circus performer until Wade Wilson, the main continuity Deadpool, showed up and then recruited him for the Deadpool Corps. The good boy met his fate in issue 1 of Deadpool Kills Deadpool, but he did so saving Wade, so it's a happier kind of note. Not really, but we'll say it is. Number 9, War. Earth 16558, our Deadpool gets an extreme makeover superpowers edition. He shows up in Extraordinary X-Men issue 8 and we only get to enjoy his presence for 5 issues. After Apocalypse returns in the early 21st century, he recruits Deadpool as one of his 4 horsemen. He recruits him for war. Deadpool and the other horsemen attacked Colossus, got him on the God Squad, and then together the evil team tracked down Storm and their young X-Men. In Extraordinary X-Men issue 10, the X-Men were actually defeated and the Ark containing 600 mutant embryos were taken back to Apocalypse. Things weren't looking that great with Wade on the bad side. When the X-Men invaded Apocalypse's kingdom to try and save the day, Deadpool fought back and went at it with Iceman. Now, Deadpool's mask gets ripped here, and then that's when you see Wade with his mouth sewn shut. Not again. We don't like seeing his mouth sewn shut. It's the opposite of what we want. Deadpool cuts his mouth open and you think he's gonna be like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. But he actually just releases a swarm of insects all over Iceman, winning that battle in a gross, itchy way. But don't worry, Deadpool gets bugged himself later on. He'll soon know what that feels like. I'll explain more of that later on in this list. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video, that would be awesome. Those likes add up and they really do support us and the company. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Let's get right back to this Deadpool list. Number 8, Deadpool the Duck. Howard the Duck has been seen in both Guardians movies and he was in Avengers Endgame. We see him gearing up alongside Earth's Mightiest. This dude has been in the same amount of MCU projects as Natalie Portman. Well, actually more, really, if you consider the main continuity. That's pretty insane. He's an important character. So when Deadpool the Duck came out back in 2017, fans were excited to see more of Howard. Howard's driving alone one night when Rocket crash lands into his car. Now he's about to congratulate Rocket on his recent box office success in Guardians, but he's rudely interrupted when the raccoon's eyes light up red and then he leaps at Howard. We got a classic case of space rabies. Some spazies. Some of them don't work. Luckily, this is Deadpool's story, so he comes in at just the right moment, and that's when him and Rocket start battling it out. Howard's trying to smooth things out while this is happening. He knows something's clearly off with Rocket. He's taking cover, he's just trying to stay out of the way. And then Deadpool shows back up in the middle of nowhere, questioning why he doesn't teleport more often, which is a great question. And then when he tries using it again, everybody gets fused together during this teleportation. Well, almost everybody. Number 7, Watari. First appearing in 5 Ronin issue 1 back in 2011, Watari is a completely different version of Wade. He's the Deadpool of Earth 11542, referred to in this universe simply as the Fool. The story takes place in 17th century Japan. Watari was one of the best and most dangerous samurai of that time, but like Deadpool of other universes, he was done dirty. He was betrayed by his own friends, he was ambushed by his allies, and then he was just left for death. He laid low for a bit, not by choice. I mean, his face was scarred up, he now had an alcohol problem, he hit rock bottom, but eventually he found his footing and got that long-awaited revenge. We see Watari the Fool make an appearance in Deadpool Kills Deadpool issue 4, alongside some other wacky versions which we can get into later on. Number 6. Dreadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Wade to Dr. Den Brighton, aka Psycho Man, in an attempt to cure him. They wanted him to shut down the voices in Wade's head so he can be, a normal civilian, but he didn't do that, did he? He actually did the opposite. Wade was now encouraged by all these voices in his head to kill the Marvel Universe. All those people, all those superheroes you love, about to meet their fate in a horrible way. He started off by going after the Fantastic Four. Reed and the Thing were gone in just a few pages, and then Sue Storm held Dreadpool off for a bit by making his head explode, which usually does a trick for most villains, but it's Deadpool, so once he healed, she was next to go. Like, the whole Fantastic Four family's gone in like literally 3 pages. It's so sad. Dreadpool then steals a device from Reed that he used to take down the Watcher. Even the Watcher isn't safe in this story, and neither are you. Check it out. Number 5. Evil Deadpool. Now, these names may start sounding a little bit confusing, like Dreadpool is an evil version that kills our heroes, and Evil Deadpool is the result of a collector with a gross hobby. That's right, Evil Deadpool is from the main 616 universe. He came to life in Deadpool Volume 4, Issue 44. Now, it all started with this young gal named Ella Whitby. She was a psychiatrist who was obsessed with Wade. She was so obsessed that she would keep body parts that he lost over time. He'd battle it out, lose an arm, she'd go in, carry it like Saving Private Ryan back to her house. Some of us had a rock collection, others collect kneecaps. That's fine, we're all different. So she would keep these parts in her freezer like a maniac right next to the jumbo freezies, and then when Deadpool found out about this horrible cold care package, he threw them all in a dumpster. This was actually the worst thing that Wade could have done, believe it or not, because once those body parts thawed out, they fused and grew back together to make this evil, much worse smelling Deadpool. Number 4. Headpool. Wade Wilson of Earth 2149 first appeared in Marvel Zombies issue 3. The merc with half a mouth was among the population that gets infected in Marvel's zombie run, but then when he's transported to the main 616 universe, he gets taken by armor, and that's when things start to get a little crazy for this guy. He ends up in Savage Land, and believe it or not, the other version that helps main 616 Deadpool assemble the core that I've been mentioning this entire list was this version. The guy with no body, just a head, is actually the perfect sidekick. Minus the non-stop talking, of course. Number 3. Deadpool Kid. The Wild Wild Wade. Okay, an instant classic. Deadpool of Earth 1108 made his first appearance in Deadpool Merc with a Mouth issue 7. When we meet him, he's wanted for bank robbery, arson, putting together a literal stampede, all that Wade goodness. It doesn't matter what timeline you catch him in, shenanigans are in order, clearly. This Deadpool would constantly talk about how much he wanted to take over the town. He had his sights set on Sheriff Fury and, of course, bounty hunter Logan. This version's quite interesting, but let's be honest, a little limiting what you can do in these dusty towns. So after our 616 Wade shot him in the head and left him for dead, it wasn't until Deadpool Kills Deadpool that we see this cowboy again. There's not much you can do in the Wild Wild West. I mean, seeing Wade on a horse or, shooting up saloons, it's cool, but limiting. Number 2. Wolverine Pool. First appearing in Cable and Deadpool issue 46, this Wade Wilson still gets the superhero upgrade, but when Weapon X decides to give him the adamantium treatment, things play out a little bit differently. See, later on, he's recruited by Dreadpool, that guy I mentioned, to take on the Deadpool core members, so he's evil. He was doing a pretty good job, that adamantium skeleton was coming in handy, but during a fight, our main 616 Deadpool tossed a grenade full of bugs at Wolverine Pool. Remember I said you got some with bugs earlier? This is payback. This is why you don't play with bugs. So that bug grenade went off and the bugs ended up chewing Wade apart, and all that was left literally was just that adamantium skeleton and claws. It's a pretty creative way to go out, but it's also really gross. It's kind of like if Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas were to take you out, or if that movie was rated R, it would look kind of something like this. And finally, number 1. Death Mask. On Earth 11683, Reed Richards was able to remove that lethal brain tumor from Wade's head, which opened an entirely new future for Wade. Now he was better than ever. There were no evil voices swirling around in his head. In fact, the only voice in his head was his own bright ideas. This Wade was in fact a genius. This keeps getting more and more positive. That's great. We love happy endings. Nice number 1 smooth landing. Did he solve world hunger? Did he stop floods? Did he cure diseases? No, actually. he was still a criminal, a master criminal actually. See, with that brain, he ended up building an empire and went by the name Death Mask, so it was actually almost worse in this scenario. Just looking at his outfit, it's pretty obvious whose spot he's taking in this universe. He killed Victor Von Doom and changed a few colors to his evil getup, resulting in Death Mask, this red version of Dr. Doom. Even after Death Mask was beaten by our main Deadpool, it still didn't end. Death Mask then made a deal with Mephisto in order to release these horrible monsters on Earth and survive. One of those monsters was the Infernal Hulk. So he's full of brilliant ideas, they're just also evil.
At number 10, we have Weapon X Wolverine. First appearing in X-Men Alpha number 1, this version of Wolverine is missing one hand and fights in a Magneto-led version of the X-Men. It's hard to imagine Logan being even more grizzled than we're used to, but with face paint and a ton of built-up resentment about the whole missing hand situation, this version of the hero shows what age can do to a person, especially when you're creeping towards the ripe age of 300. Known as Weapon X in this future reality, this Wolverine soon becomes known as Weapon Omega, and to be fair, his anger isn't the only thing driving him to be more vicious than ever. This version of Wolverine is augmented by the Celestials and can only eventually be stopped by Jean Grey. At number 9, we have Counter-Earth Hawkeye. This could be contested whether or not he's from the future or just an alternate reality, but time is kind of hard to follow sometimes when dealing with interdimensional travel, so I'll leave this one up for debate. Regardless, it's a pretty unique version of Wolverine that I thought was worth mentioning. Franklin Richards writes a new version of Hawkeye in Onslaught Reborn number 1, who appears to be a different iteration than the one we're used to, and that's because behind the mask is actually Wolverine and not Clint Barton. On Counter-Earth, this version of Wolverine is part of the Avengers, and it seems to me that this alternate dimension is further along in its own timeline, allowing for Wolverine to possess some kind of magical ability brought on by Blastar the Living Bomb Burst. At number 8 is Phalanx Wolverine from the newer comic series X Deaths of Wolverine, released between January and March of 2022. This version of Wolverine travels into the future to save a being who is very, very important to the mutant race. And as he travels through time, he starts to envision memories from his past, memories that he hadn't ever before been able to recall. One of the more significant of these lost memories is one where he was present during the birth of Charles Xavier, saving his family from Omega Red. This storyline uses a future version of Wolverine to remind us that this hero, being the most published in the history of Marvel Comics, has so much history that there is still new lore to be uncovered even in 2022. At number 7, we have Logan from Earth 10,511. Another iteration of Weapon X, this version of Wolverine appears in Wolverine Weapon X issue number 12 for just a brief moment. But in the short time that he appears, we get a glimpse into a whole new world where Wolverine has lost both his hands, replacing one of them with a hook. During a major battle in a distant future, he comes in to support his team with a big black beard and overgrown hair and a costume that seems entirely upgraded. He's got metal shoulder and chest pads with a utility belt, and he seems like he's been through a lot. He fights against Roxxon to take back the government, but is eventually, spoiler alert, killed by Deathlock. At number 6, we have James Howlett from Earth 96099. Only appearing very briefly, this future version of the hero is totally missing his arm after his battles with the Hulks, which seems like a theme, this whole no arm thing. But anyway, this time he's also totally bald as well. He decides to recruit a new X-Men team with a new race of mutants that he encounters in his future timeline. His goal is to rebuild Baltimore of all places after it is destroyed, along with much of civilization after a major war, but he also has to protect the world from an army of mindless Hulks who continue to act as the main threat in this storyline. At number 5, we have the Wolverine from Wolverine The End. This comic series is known to offer the reader a look into how these characters face, well, their ends. And in Wolverine's issues, we face what seems to be an even older and more grim version of an old man Logan. But for Wolverine, we're left with a cliffhanger instead of his death, suggesting that there will be even more future iterations of Logan and or James Howlett to come. In the final issue of this The End series, James faces off against his own older brother, John Howlett Jr. And as they duke it out in front of an audience of military personnel, James ends up accidentally killing his brother, driving his claws through his chest after a fall. After some epic final words are exchanged, we watch James sit in silence as it's suggested that he is apprehended by the authorities. But this isn't confirmed, that's actually where the series ends. This is definitely one of the more gothic and darker versions of Wolverine, and the dark epic storyline that this series explores really reflects how much Wolverine has been through over the years, even into the future. At number 4, we have Ultimate Cable. We all know that Cable is a time traveler and the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey. Well, on Earth 2107 this isn't the case. Instead, James Howlett takes on the mantle of Cable and sports a big scar across his face. This is from a battle taking place in the future where this Wolverine version of Cable, or vice versa, fights Apocalypse with the X-Men, and his arm is once again ripped off. When Apocalypse absorbs his healing factor, he uses the severed arm with the claws on it against Cable Wolverine and leaves a massive scar on the face. And since this and the dismemberment come after his healing power is taken away, these wounds remain. Luckily, this version of Wolverine has other abilities like Cable's and eventually finds a way to travel back in time 30 years to collect Professor X and try and right the wrongs of the future. At number 3 is Old Man Phoenix. First appearing in Marvel Legacy number 1, this version of Wolverine is, as you could imagine by the name, Old Man Logan possessing the Phoenix Force. Hailing from Earth 14412, this version of Logan basically mirrors that of 616 Logan, up until King Loki wipes out humankind. Logan is known to be dead under unknown circumstances, but is soon chosen to become the new host for the Phoenix Force and travels the universe destroying celestial bodies on his way. When he eventually encounters a future version of Loki, he goes back in time to undo the damage that Loki had done, letting go of the Phoenix Force in the process. And this is a request by Loki himself after seeing something that changes his intentions for supreme power on a dime. This version of Wolverine is definitely the most powerful on the list, both in influence and sheer power. And he looks pretty badass as well, like an old angry wizard. Fire wizard. At number 2 we have Old Man Logan. Just good old man Logan. Everyone knows this one. I wanted to put him higher on the list than his Phoenix Force counterpart because even though the previous entry is more powerful, Old Man Logan is just more iconic. Old Man Logan first appears in Fantastic Four number 558, but is most well known for his own self-titled series. In this future, Logan has a family but is in constant fear for his life, as most of the world is ruled by supervillains. Most superheroes are dead this far into the future, and with his family on the line, he becomes a driven father and husband, packing a punch even more powerful now that it's driven by love and the fear that comes with it. After he raises enough money to protect his family from the Hulk gang, which is a thing in the future I guess, the gang kills his family anyway, leaving Old Man Logan with only one choice: to kill the original Hulk then and there. He is then integrated into the mainstream Marvel Universe after the events of Secret Wars. At number 1, we have the Days of Future Past Wolverine, or Wolverine from Earth 811. On Earth 811, this version of Wolverine lives in a time 33 years ahead of the modern 616 version. And when the Watcher from Earth 9997 looks into Logan's past, he unveils that Logan's past isn't quite as it seemed. Instead of being born sometime in the 1800s and tested on in a lab, X-51 finds that he had actually descended from a tribe of humans known as the Moon People. In this future storyline, he's faced with the task of protecting the mutant race after the Mutant Control Act is put into effect, and Sentinels are ordered as the protectors of America. After a few search and rescue missions, Wolverine joins the Resistance and fights with his mutant comrades, including Magneto, to defeat the Sentinels. In this reality, Wolverine has all the same powers as the 616 version, but he does have access to the Watcher's transportation devices as well on Earth's moon, which could transport him anywhere on Earth instantly.
In a 10, Deadpool. Little is known about Deadpool's life before the zombie plague arrived on Earth 2149. At some point though, he was infected and he attacked the Silver Surfer. He most likely fled the attack but also escaped the power cosmic zombies from getting himself incinerated and killed. He later was transported from Earth 2149 to Earth 616, calling himself the Merc with half a mouth due to his lack of most of his jaw, and exhibiting a wide range of knowledge. However, he was torn apart by some blades after Kale put some tricky maneuvers, resulting in Deadpool now reduced to only a head and being contained within armor. He managed to escape from armor headquarters with the help of Simon Garth by using the base teleporters to escape to the bottom of the sea, where Deadpool's head infected all of the menfish. Garth was compelled to travel to the island nation of Tiano in the Caribbean Sea, where he told Black Talon about the zombie plague. But like, look, normal Deadpool is bloodthirsty enough, but a zombie version that gets reduced to only a head and then still keeps going, that's freaking nuts. I'm also gonna not try to hold back my swears because it's Deadpool. It's fucking Deadpool. So sorry, editor, who has to deal with this.
No, it's fine. Fine.
And at 9, Dead Man Wade. Obsessed with feeling pain, Dead Man Wade Wilson became one of Apocalypse's Pale Riders, a team formed by Apocalypse's chief assassins. His teammate Danielle Moonstar took great pleasure in inflicting pain upon him, pretty kinky. But when Apocalypse learned that Nightcrawler was seeking out Avalon, he sent Wade and the other Pale Riders to follow him and destroy the refuge. Along the way, Danielle's torture of Wade annoyed their teammate Damask to the point where she strangled Moonstar to death. Watching that woman get killed unnerved Wayne even further. However, this version of Wade is also in constant pain, and even though he is in constant pain, his healing factor keeps him alive, meaning that he will never truly be freed. That is until Nightcrawler teleports his head off of his body, resulting in Wade dying despite being able to regrow limbs to a much easier extent than his 616 version. But hey, what am I gonna do? It's comics. And at 8, Dreadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Deadpool to Dr. Benjamin Brighton in an attempt to cure him of his insanity. Unbeknownst to the X-Men, however, Brighton had in actuality been brainwashing his patients to do his bidding as opposed to curing them. Brighton's treatment failed to brainwash Deadpool and instead destroyed his inner voices, replacing them with a single voice that knew the entire universe was just a lie and encouraged him to kill non-stop. He then killed Dr. Brighton by smashing him into a release form after stating all the form needed was Brighton's stamp of approval. And by stamp he meant his blood. He then killed everyone in the asylum and then blew up the building. In order to end it all, he began killing the rest of the heroes of the world, and he started by going after the Fantastic Four, killing Reed Richards and the Thing first, then proceeding to kill the Human Torch. But Susan Storm caught up to him and blew his head off with a force field. But while she was grieving over the death of her family, Deadpool regenerated his head and killed her. Because of course he did. This version is a maniac, and honestly, I'm here for it. And at 7, Dogpool. Dogpool was once a dog known as Wilson, who was used as an animal test subject for Mascara X, which was intended to be a mascara that continually replenished itself after only one application. Instead, Mascara X disfigured Wilson and gave him the ability to heal from any wound. The lab owners didn't realize that he'd acquired this ability and tossed him in a dumpster. Wilson tore free of the trash bag and wandered around, rejected by all those who saw him, until he threw himself in front of a car. A circus truck saw it happen and stopped for him, and immediately recognized the potential in his regenerative abilities, and he became the circus's starring act. He went from being exploited by makeup companies to exploited by the circus. The death-defying hound, Deadpool. He worked in the circus until the Deadpool of Earth 616 showed up and recruited him for the Deadpool Corps. But a goddamn dog version of Deadpool? Hell yeah, that's horrifying. It's a fucking dog that enjoys killing people from what I saw. And he can't die. Like what the hell do you think? It's gonna be cute? And at 6, Galactipool. Galactipool is a member of the evil Deadpool Corps. He is seen to attack the remaining Deadpool Corps and their allies after they defeat the evil Deadpool Corps that was originally sent to kill them. But he's taken out when Lady Deadpool deliberately crashes the B. Arthur into his head. But let's be honest. Even if he did die, a combination of Galactus and Deadpool is certainly a terrifying concept. Like, if we talk about it, I feel like it's still giving this guy too much power. Like, what sounds even the slightest bit okay about this version of Deadpool? The only reason he isn't higher on this list is because we didn't really get much of an opportunity to see his powers in action. But assuming he had all the powers of Galactus, this is probably the strongest version of Deadpool there is. But this isn't the list of the strongest alternate versions of Deadpool, it's scariest. And while this idea is scary with no real situations to back it up, we don't know if this is a truly scary version in practice. Halfway through, in at number 5, Wolverine Pool. Wade Wilson from Earth TRN 1946 was bonded with adamantium to his skeleton by Weapons Plus, their version of the Weapon X program. He was later recruited by Deadpool for his army. He killed Deadpool Pulp before the arrival of Galactipool. He was attacked by Deadpool with a grenade from which bugs came out of and then ate all of his flesh, leaving behind only a skeleton and claws, which is horrifying. His powers are seemingly the same as Earth 616 Wolverine, but like with Deadpool's body. So, I mean, okay, it's weird because he looks like Deadpool, but he is also Wolverine. It's f***ing weird, okay? Wolverine Pool's healing factor though is most likely weaker than the 616 version of either Wolverine or Deadpool's healing factor, which makes him less dangerous, but come on. A combination of Wolverine and Deadpool is something that we should all fear, and most likely do fear. I'm surprised Deadpool didn't make this a thing at the end of Deadpool 2 though, when he was correcting everything that he did wrong, including the Green Lantern movie, which was actually Ryan Reynolds, but hey. And at 4, Evil Deadpool. The origins of the being known as Evil Deadpool are actually tied to Ella Whitby, a British psychiatrist obsessed with this superhuman mercenary Deadpool. She collected numerous parts of Deadpool's body that he had lost over the years and kept them in her freezer. When Deadpool found them though, he threw them in a dumpster in disgust, which is weird because I mean you're Deadpool, why are you disgusted? It's your own body, but whatever. The parts eventually thawed out, and since it still had Deadpool's healing factor, they all decided to fuse together into a single person. Evil Deadpool hijacked the private plane of an American businessman and traveled to the United States around the same time the original Deadpool did. And the two crossed paths for the first time after the Evil Deadpool blew up Deadpool's favorite chimichanga joint, and they fought until they ran out of bullets. Both Deadpools agreed for a second round at Canarsie Park though. Their second explosive encounter caught the attention of Captain America, who arrived to the scene after Evil Deadpool had escaped. But yeah, he's the whole reason for like the whole Deadpool core, so pretty fucking scary dude. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Death Mask. After a revolutionary procedure performed by Reed Richards removed a lethal brain tumor, Wade Wilson became a super genius and used his newfound intellect to erect a criminal empire. Wade began wearing armor styled after Doctor Doom and went by Death Mask. After killing Death Wish, which was Victor Von Doom, who was the Deadpool of this reality that the Deadpool of the mainstream continuity was actually quite fond of, Death Mask decided to take down his alter ego. After being defeated, Death Mask made a contract with Mephisto to unleash monsters to Earth, including the demon Infernal Hulk. Not to mention that he has the powers of Deadpool and Doctor Doom, with an even cooler color scheme than the original Doctor Doom. But ultimately, in at number 2, Venom Pool. Venom Pool is an alternate reality version of Deadpool from Earth 90211. He is the combination of Deadpool and the Venom symbiote. Being a part of Earth 90211, he is part of the reality Beyonder loves partying in. A reality that's perpetually stuck in the 1980s in many regards, much like my father. Venom Pool is the Beyonder's go-to party animal, until the party gets boring for the Beyonder. But Deadpool was actually originally meant to kill Beyonder before discovering how much he liked the partying lifestyle. And once Spider-Man showed up demanding that the Beyonder remove the symbiote, this is when Deadpool becomes Venom Pool. He is later seen in one of the evil Deadpool's evil Deadpool core, and he is presumably killed shortly after this point, but we still don't know. His appearance changed rather drastically in the time between What If Venom possessed Deadpool number 1 and Deadpool kills Deadpool number 2. In his initial appearance, Venom Pool looked like he was a cross between Venom, Deadpool, and Rick James, and in his recent appearances he looks like Deadpool but with like a Venom mouth and more ripped. And finally, in at number 1, Poison Deadpool. The Poisons are a species of crystalline extraterrestrials spawned by the Poison Queen, originating on Earth 17952. The Poisons spent an unknown amount of time as prey for larger, stronger creatures before discovering that they could assimilate symbiotes and their hosts to become more powerful. While hunting the Venom symbiote, they were discovered by an incarnation of Doctor Strange, who bonded to the symbiote and proceeded to recruit an army of venomized superheroes, anti-heroes, and supervillains from across the multiverse to stop the Poisons. However, the Poisons saw this as an opportunity to swell their ranks, and most of these recruits were either killed or assimilated. When Venom Pool was summoned to the Earth dealing with these Poisons, he ended up willingly surrendering himself to a group of Poisons, thinking that the host's original personas were not completely extinguished, and banking on his insanity, granting him additional resistance to this process. This theory was proven correct though, as though his body was consumed to create Poison Deadpool, his mind remained intact, and he was able to suppress that of the poison that had consumed him. So while Deadpool was uncertain how long he could suppress the Poison's psyche, he helped the Resistance infiltrate the Poison's lair, which I mean has gotta be one of the most Deadpool things that you could fucking do. Like, I'm super overpowered with the symbiote, so I'm going to willingly give myself over to these things that could potentially take over my mind, but I don't fucking care, because I'm gonna be even more powerful, and then if I am crazy enough to just not have to deal with it, then I'm just gonna help the good guys, because I don't fucking care. Jesus. Deadpool, man.
Coming in at number 10 is Dark Claw. So, what happens if you take Logan Howlett and Bruce Wayne and just mash them up together? You subtract Robbins, add some Canada, carry the two, and you'll find you get Logan Wayne. This awesome character is from the amalgam universe of Earth 9602. Obviously, Bruce Wayne has no actual powers of his own unless you count his undeniable skill, so most of the abilities belonging to Logan Wayne come from his Wolverine half. A massively powerful regenerative healing factor slows slowed aging, superhuman senses, plus his healing factor and adamantium skeleton allow him to have a degree of super strength. But thanks to his Wayne half of things, Darkclaw is a master detective and master of martial arts, stealth, acrobatics, and intimidation. After he witnessed the passing of his parents, Logan went to live with his uncle up in Alberta, Canada, who then also lost his life to poachers. So yes, this is still as dark as both Bruce and Logan's backstories. He then went to kick it with some nuns and then joined up with the Canadian Air Force. Now after this, at some point, he joined the Weapon X program and learned of his mutation and gained his claws alongside his incredibly dangerous rival, Creed H. Quinn, who would become a saber-toothed Joker hybrid named Hyena. Logan Wayne would go back to New Gotham City, where he decided to avenge his parents' and uncle's deaths by donning the costume and name of Darkclaw. Number 9. Sideburns. When Galactica, the daughter of Galactus, is looking for her next meal in issue 1 of her self-titled comic, she finds Earth, a lovely little morsel of a planet teeming with scrumptious life. But while looking at her dinner, she happens to notice Wolverine, a mutant who can seemingly regenerate from anything. I mean, there's also Deadpool, but whatever. Realizing his mutant regenerative abilities, she formulates an idea of using a bit of his harvested DNA with a bit of celestial power to create Sideburns, the regenerating planet. A planet-sized Wolverine that would grow back after each meal, giving the World Devourer billions and billions of years of meals. Unfortunately, she just as quickly realizes that a planet made up of Canadian mutant DNA like this, prone to drinking beer over anything else, and with predilection to being feral, would be highly unstable. Unfortunate, because I'd love to see this guy floating around through the galaxy. Number 8. House of M. Wolverine. Now to be clear, technically this version of Wolverine is just regular old 616 Wolverine, since unlike other characters in this Scarlet Witch created reality, Wolverine retains all of his old memories, which gives him a distinct advantage in this world. But outside of his story-serving memories, before he regains those memories, this Wolverine was a member of Magneto's Red Guard, which saw him have additional training as a SHIELD operative, adding extra skill to a character who is hard to even scratch on a villain's best day. Also, in this reality, Logan has himself a little relationship with Mystique, unlike his alternates who seem to always be pining after Jean Grey. Is this an advantage over regular Wolverine? Depends on your taste. Number 7. Vampire Wolverine. In What If number 24, thanks to his healing factor, Wolverine is actually immune to being turned into a vampire from just a regular old bite, which allows him to be the best one suited to bring down the threat of vampires themselves. But when he finally takes down Dracula, he actually decides to have a little snack on the dead vampire, which does turn the mutant into not just a vampire, but the new Vampire King. The fact that Vampire Wolverine is a vampire means that his strength and speed are enhanced to vampiric levels. On top of that, he has an evil personality that is fueled by the character's desire to drain the blood of the living. Now couple that with his already somewhat feral personality, his healing factor, adamantium skeleton, and the vampire trait of immortality, and he is very dangerous compared to the usual Wolverine. Number 6. Ultimate Wolverine. I'm gonna be honest, this version of Wolverine is a bit alarming in terms of his morals and preferences, and just his behavior in general is just a bit less heroic than his 616 counterpart. But despite that, it is hard not to admit that he is quite the powerful character. His healing factor is a bit different than his prime version and is called a survival factor. That means he can survive being torn in half, departed from his head, and even blown up by a nuclear explosion. He can also detect lies and still has an adamantium skeleton. He was trained by Weapon X as an emotionless assassin, but when the Brotherhood hired him to take out Xavier, he proves he is more than just muscle, overcoming his brainwashing and joining the X-Men. Although, it may have only been just because he fell in love with the teenage Jean Grey when he was like 30 years old, which is a little uncomfortable. Number 5. Days of Future Past. Wolverine in the Days of Future Past storyline comes from a future world that has become apocalyptic because of the Sentinels, which basically eradicated mutants by the thousands and ended up enslaving the planet, both mutant and humankind alike. Now Wolverine, who in this future is older and by extension more experienced, is a more powerful version of his 616 counterpart. He still has all the powers of the regular Wolverine, but he just works a lot smarter. Unfortunately, he still ends up passing when a Sentinel destroys him, leaving only his adamantium skeleton behind. But thanks to comics being comics, this version is revived and appears again much later on in Earth X, standing in for this Earth's Wolverine, who had finally married and settled down with Jean Grey, which I think makes him more powerful, but he also really settled, grew a rather large gut, and seems to have completely distanced himself from his former self. Jean also abandons her former life and is now an out-of-shape housewife chasing after their kids and resenting her choice to marry Logan. So yes, Days of Future Past Logan was needed here for sure. Number 4, Old Man Logan. In the alternate universe where we are introduced to Old Man Logan and Old Man Hawkeye, everything is in shambles. It's an apocalyptic wasteland, and all because the villains, under the leadership of the Red Skull, had coordinated a massive attack on the world's superheroes, leaving only a very few alive. Logan himself was tricked into wiping out every single member of the X-Men, and while that is tragic, I do have to say that's incredibly impressive. Like, damn. Impressive or not, it drove Logan mad with grief and he vowed to become a pacifist. He retired to a quiet farming family life, letting the world go to hell around him, but we need a story, so that can't fly. Eventually, being short on money and needing to help his family, he joins Hawkeye on an adventure across America to deliver a briefcase of super soldier serum. After he goes on this grand adventure, defeats the Red Skull, and returns home, the Hulk gang has decimated his family. This is when he finally pops his claws for the first time since the story began, and ooh, it's satisfying. He wipes out the entire gang and eviscerates the Hulk himself, and then eventually finds his way to the main Marvel universe. Another version of him even gets the powers of Venom as well. So cool. Number 3, Weapon Omega. After the Mutant Legion went back in time and accidentally took the life of his pops, Xavier, Apocalypse came out of hibernation 10 years too early and took over control of the United States. Enter the Age of Apocalypse storyline. The Logan of Age of Apocalypse is extremely ferocious and he goes by the name Weapon X. He has only one hand after having it blasted off by Cyclops, but his claws still pop through the nub, which is kind of alarming. He and Jean Grey set off apart from the X-Men to save mutants and stop Apocalypse, but Weapon X eventually becomes the new Apocalypse, gaining his celestial and mutant powers to try and stop aliens from destroying the population of Earth. Yes, it's nuts, but I suggest you check out this story because it's super cool. Number 2, General James Howlett. In the second volume of Extreme X-Men, joining a team of multi-dimensional mutants that hunt down evil Xaviers across many dimensions is a much different version of Wolverine. Hailing from the reality of Earth 12025, this version of our feral mutant is the Governor General of the Dominion of Canada and Viceroy of Her Majesty's Expedition to Shangri-La. He is like a version of Wolverine who is also mixed with President Theodore Roosevelt but still Canadian. General James Howlett is an adventurer and hero alongside his partner and lover, the demigod Hercules, or Heracles if you prefer and want to get smarmy in the comments. These two shared a love that was built after years and years of working together, and their bond was so strong that Herc gave James a super cool upgrade in the form of a skeleton made of adamantine, which is a godly golden metal even stronger than adamantium, making Wolverine completely indestructible and immune to telepathic attacks. Unfortunately, due to the god on mortal nature of the relationship, the Greek gods banish the pair to Tartarus, where they fight hordes and hordes of lost and damned souls for like 4 years. His penchant for big booms and affinity for political service make him a fun take on this character, and the beard? Oh, it's classic. And in at number 1 is Phoenix Logan. The Phoenix Force embodies life in the Marvel Universe. It is incredibly powerful, and when it chooses a host, that being becomes a force to be reckoned with, which is funny how it always seems to happen to characters who are already pretty damn unstoppable by themselves. Old Man Phoenix is an alternate reality version of Wolverine from Earth 14112, which features a story that is actually revolved around Old King Thor. Now, Wolverine's past resembles his Earth 616 counterpart, but it's a little different, because after Loki destroyed everyone on Earth, including Wolverine, the Phoenix Force chose Wolverine as its avatar, resurrected him, and granted him its powers. So what we have here is Wolverine's regenerative healing factor, retractable adamantium claws, and enhanced senses combined with the Phoenix's psionic powers, cosmic pyrokinesis, and flight. These factors come together to make him one of the most powerful entities in his universe, even more powerful than Old King Thor himself.
Number 10, Ultimate Deadpool. While the Ultimate timeline is said to be parallel to the 616 main continuity timeline, technically the Ultimate continuity of Earth 1610 is still set in the future by comparison. The Ultimate line was actually meant to shake things up, chiefly by giving stories a more updated and modern setting. setting. That was one of the major ways it differed, as its continuity didn't extend back to the 1960s and further back beyond that. Add in the fact that the ultimate version of Deadpool is later revealed to be a cyborg, having fully converted to match their fellow Reaver brethren, and you have a pretty futuristic version of Deadpool here. Basically, evil robot Deadpool in this universe. Number 9. Horsemen of Apocalypse. In this alternate reality of Earth 16558, Deadpool was chosen to become a Horseman of Apocalypse. Here, Deadpool was ordered to join the rest of the Horsemen in defeating and destroying the young X-Men who were trespassers in their home of Omega World, and retrieving the Ark that they carried with them, which held within it hundreds of mutant embryos. In this reality, many of Apocalypse's choices for his Horsemen are actually not really mutant in origin. Also on this deadly team is Venom and Moon Knight. Later, Colossus, who attempts to buy time for the young X-Men, is also recruited into their ranks, being the only technical mutant other than Apocalypse on the team. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Deadpool lists or more future alternate versions lists, be sure to let us know by clicking that like and commenting below. Also, if you haven't already, go follow us on Facebook. We got some cool stuff for you over there. Number 8. Deadman Wade. Deadman Wade appears in the Age of Apocalypse alternate future reality. Here, Apocalypse succeeds in taking over the world, and Deadpool is recruited into becoming one of his Pale Riders. In this reality, Deadpool is not much of a jokester, but instead is extremely sad and quite depressed. As a Pale Rider, he is constantly mistreated by Danny Moonstar, his teammate, who is also part of the Pale Riders in this reality. Deadpool in this reality is rapidly decaying, which causes him to feel immense pain, almost all the time. In the end, he is killed by Nightcrawler, who teleports his head away from his body to do so. Deadman Wade, however, would later be resurrected and would go on to join the evil Deadpool Corps, appearing alongside them in the series Deadpool Kills Deadpool. Number 7. Agent Deadpool. This Deadpool is never really given a name like most alternates who appear as a member of the evil Deadpool Corps. However, he does seem to have some pretty fancy tech and the ability to body slide, and I would assume potentially time slide. He appears in Deadpool Kills Deadpool, a series by Cullen Bunn where Dreadpool seeks to create his own team of evil Deadpools so that he might use them to wipe out every Deadpool in the Marvel multiverse. Dreadpool, by the way, is the same version of Deadpool known for killing the entire Marvel universe. Agent Deadpool, as I've chosen to call him, is one of Dreadpool's agents who appears in the first issue of Deadpool Kills Deadpool. He takes out Headpool, Golden Age Deadpool, and sadly, Dogpool, before Deadpool of the main reality of Earth 616 avenges their deaths by killing Agent Deadpool in turn, using Agent Deadpool's own anti-regeneration or anti-Deadpool ray. Number 6. Eternity Deadpool. This Deadpool only makes a brief appearance in Doom War issue number 5. Here, Deadpool is recruited into a mission to help retrieve the 10,000 tons of vibranium that Dr. Doom stole from Wakanda. When Deadpool passed through the Nowhere Room, he's turned temporarily into kind of a splat of goo and organs. I say temporarily because, well, he's Deadpool, so he does get better because he got that healing factor. And quite quickly too, I will say. During this time, however, we also get a glimpse into multiple alternate versions of Deadpool from the multiverse, one of which happens to be a version in which Deadpool goes on to become the new Eternity. Number 5. Old Head Deadpool. This alternate version of Deadpool comes from the Wastelanders or Old Man Logan reality of Earth 807128. Here, Deadpool appears to have survived the uprising of supervillains, destruction of the Earth, and post-apocalyptic setting of this continuity. At least, his head did. We see him as a head in a jar in Wastelander's Hawkeye, where he is kept in a bar that Juggernaut frequents, and is potentially the boss of? Although he no longer has a body, this merc still has kept his mouth, and still uses it to crack wise at almost any opportunity that presents itself. Number 4. Deadpool 2099. Deadpool 2099 is Warda Wilson, the daughter of Shikla and Deadpool. While in 2099, Deadpool also exists, although it is actually Warda who holds her father hostage, along with Emily Preston, the adoptive mother of Eleanor Preston, who is also Deadpool's daughter. Warda kidnaps them both in hopes of finding out what happened to her mother, Shikla, who basically went missing. While she is the daughter of Deadpool, Wade never really knew about her until then because Shikla and Deadpool split up before she was born, and Shikla basically decided to keep Warda's existence a secret from Wade. Like her dad, this future legacy version of Deadpool, Warda Wilson, also has a healing factor. Number 3. Legacy Deadpool. Deadpool has more than one daughter actually. He also has Ellie Camacho, also known in this future as Eleanor Preston. She is the adopted daughter of Deadpool and Emily Preston in the future of Earth 16356, the same reality that Warda is also existing in. Here Ellie ends up manifesting immortality powers, with her basically regenerating upon her death, being reborn with all of her prior memories, but basically reset to look as she did when her powers first manifested. In other words, she becomes a teenager physically again, and then grows from there whenever she dies. Ellie has always been one of my favorites when it comes to heroes' kids out there, and although I loved Shikla and Deadpool together, I have always preferred Ellie to their daughter, Warda. Ellie takes up her father's mantle and is known by the codename Deadpool in this reality. Deadpool Ellie goes on to fight against her half-sister, Deadpool Warda, in the future, who is also of course known as Deadpool 2099, one of them. Number 2. Future X-Men. During Battle of the Atom, a future Deadpool appears as part of the Future X-Men team. He is there in an attempt to send the all-new X-Men, or past X-Men, back to their time, convincing them to return, where they belong. This alternate version of Wade also seems to be a fan of Gold Balls. He claims in the future that Gold Ball's apparently a legend and asks for his autograph, though I don't know if he's joking. In reality, the X-Men team that he is a part of is not really a future X-Men team, but is instead a future Brotherhood of Evil Mutants team, ha ha ha, led by the evil son of Professor X and Mystique, Charles Xavier II, and the evil son of Wolverine and Mystique, Reyes. Number 1. Days of Future Past. Deadpool managed to retcon an old future version of himself into Days of Future Past, and appears in Cosmic Ghost Rider's story, where he himself is doing some meddling in the future timeline, which for him is currently the past. Does that make sense? Or have I lost you yet? I feel like time travel, we lose everyone at some point. Still, Cosmic Ghost Rider decides to call it the future to simplify, so I think it's fair that we do so too. Here, Deadpool appears to have somehow become the leader of the X-Men. His original plan was to send Kitty Pryde back in time, but when Cosmic Ghost Rider steals the valuable jammer component she was meant to transport to help prevent the bleak dystopian future, Deadpool decides to send Cosmic Ghost Rider back in time instead. This all goes down in the series Cosmic Ghost Rider destroys Marvel history in issue number 3. What is your favorite future alternate version of Deadpool? Do you like when Deadpool gets all timey-wimey with his alternates, or do you just prefer when they are just from alternate worlds and have just distinct differences, like Lady Deadpool, or Evil Deadpool, or Panda Deadpool? Panda Pool?
Coming in as the first entry on our list at number 10, we've got to go with Kuin, the teenage alien clone. During a misadventure that saw Wolverine stranded on a planet at the edge of the cosmos, far away from any other X-Men or Avengers, he found himself coming face to face with a young boy that seemed to share his exact power set, including an adamantium skeleton. Named Kuin, this boy is eventually revealed to have been created by an alien race that worships Wolverine and sees him as a missing link needed to create the ultimate being. Unfortunately, it's also implied that the cloning process was imperfect and that the adamantium attached to Kuin's bones might not be able to grow with the rest of his body, leaving this story just as tragic as it is odd. Coming in at number 9, we have Jimmy Hudson, the son of Ultimate Wolverine. In the Ultimate Marvel Universe, things weren't looking too hot. Magneto had gone off the deep end and murdered a large portion of both the world population and the entirety of the X-Men, even killing Wolverine with a blast powerful enough to rip the adamantium off his bones. Following this universe-changing event, a young boy named Jimmy Hudson was gifted a post-death holographic message from Wolverine revealing himself to be the kid's father. With the same healing factor and claws as his dad, along with the ability to change what substance his claws are actually made of, Jimmy Hudson was an ideal candidate as the X-Men looked to reform after the death of so many members. Coming in at number 8, we've got to go with Torrent. On the alternate world of Earth 9811, the planet was never reverted back from being a patchwork of different realities named Battleworld, and led to many superheroes deciding to settle down on this new plane of existence. Born to Wolverine and Storm, Torrent was a hot-tempered young mutant who possessed both the power to manipulate the weather and heal back from any injury, an incredibly powerful combo that meant she had little to fear when summoning some trademark lightning. Joining a new team of X-Men determined to wipe the robotic Sentinels off their new home, Torrent is definitely a mutant you do not want to mess with. Coming in at number 7, we have Saberclaw. Hailing from Earth 98-2, this son of Wolverine and an unknown woman absolutely hates his father. So much so that it seems to have literally changed him into appearing more reminiscent of Sabretooth than his actual dad. Wearing adamantium sheaths on his bone claws to make them even deadlier, Saberclaw was briefly a member of this universe's Sinister Six before eventually being convinced to put his differences aside with his father and help defend the world from the threat of Galactus and the daughter of Loki. Just another day in the wonderful world of weird comic book family dynamics. Coming in at number 6, we've got to go with Wild Thing. Hailing from the same universe as her half-brother Saberclaw, this daughter of Wolverine and the ninja Elektra has managed to stay on the side of good and become a teenage superhero that would be notable even without famous parents. With increased speed, strength, and the ability to create claws out of pure psychic energy, Wild Thing is an incredibly powerful mutant that showcases the best influences of the X-Men and proves that even when the first generation is ready to retire, there'll always be an angry clawed mutant ready to protect the X-Men name. Coming in at number 5, we have the villainous Raze Darkholme. Hailing from a dark alternate future where Wolverine and Mystique had a son, Raze is an even more powerful shapeshifter than his mother, with all of the bloodlust and rage of his father unleashed. Traveling to the main Marvel timeline and impersonating Kitty Pryde in order to get close enough to strike at his father, Raze planned to wipe out humanity in this reality in order to create a safe haven across the multiverse for all of mutant kind, and was willing to do anything and impersonate anyone to achieve it. Coming in at number 4, we've got to go with something a little more live action than the rest of these comic books, with X-24 from the movie Logan. An allegedly perfect clone of Wolverine, but with none of the compassion or humanity, X-24 was treated like an attack dog and followed the orders of Xander Rice to hunt down and capture the real Wolverine and the young mutant girl he was protecting. Based on Wolverine during his prime years, he was able to physically overcome the true Wolverine and was only able to be defeated by a bullet made of pure adamantium to the back of the head. Talk about overkill. Coming in at number 3, we have Hulk Jr. And no, I promise this didn't suddenly become a list about Bruce Banner's kids. In the alternate future that's often seen in stories involving Old Man Logan, Hulk Jr. is the last surviving grandson of Bruce Banner, and the last member of the infamous and cannibalistic Hulk Gang. Following their defeat by Wolverine, Logan decided to raise this young gamma-mutated child as a member of his own family. So, while the two might not be biologically related, Hulk Jr. grew into a heroic figure because of how he was raised, and would go on to start a new generation of heroes on this post-apocalyptic world, bringing some hope to a land filled with tragedy. Coming in at number 2, we have Laura Kinney, aka X-23. Created by the Weapon X project when they were attempting to remake the success of Wolverine with a genetic sample that had a damaged Y chromosome, Laura is otherwise a perfect clone of Logan in every way. While her early years were traumatic and occasionally brought her into conflict with Wolverine and the X-Men, in recent years she's actually taken up the name of Wolverine herself, living up to the title that's inspired mutants for generations and helping carve out a new place for mutant kind in a new world. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Daken, the dark son of Wolverine. Named after the Japanese term for mongrel dog or bastard, Daken is the tragic child that Wolverine never knew about, his mother being murdered before Wolverine even knew he had a son. Cut from his mother's body, Daken was raised to hate his father, and in their very first encounter slashed open his stomach and left him to bleed to death. With the same incredible healing abilities and bone claws as his dad, Daken has had a long road of trying to find his proper place in the world, and has fought on the sides of both good and evil over the course of his tragic life. In recent years though, Daken does seem to have found some sense of belonging on the island of Krakoa, and has recently become a member of the new X-Factor team. Let's hope he can catch a little bit of a break from his life being so angsty.
Number 10, Swordsman. When the world's heroes gave up their lives in order to destroy the villain Onslaught, what they didn't know is that Franklin Richards had subconsciously created a pocket universe to save everyone. No one knew of this, and they spent an entire year on this counter-Earth reliving their new lives as heroes reborn, because that was the name of the comic. One of these heroes that seemed to be native to this pocket universe was a guy by the name of Swordsman. Swordsman was a member of the Avengers, and he was with them in their fights with Loki, Kang, and the Hulk, and eventually he became the last Avenger when the other Avengers went back to Earth 616. Now sadly, Swordsman ended up getting cancer, and in an effort to keep the world safe, he created a new team of heroes called the Remnants, leading them under his new name, Deadpool. Unfortunately, he had to retire from superheroing because of the cancer, but then, in a sudden twist, Deadpool/Swordsman learns that his entire reality and everyone in it is actually just the fabrication of a young boy named Franklin, and he goes absolutely mad and wants to destroy the entire dimension. He steals a SHIELD helicarrier filled with nuclear boom booms, and then launches all of them at the Watcher's Citadel on the moon, riding one of them along the way. Turns out he actually creates a tear in space and time and meets an evil core of Deadpool's, and he joins up. Number 9. Kidpool. I am putting Kidpool on this list for pretty much one reason. 2 words. Lightsabers. Technically, it's 1 word, just let me live. Anyone who wields a lightsaber is automatically just better, okay? And when that person is a pre-puberty Wade Wilson, and he wields not just 1, but 2 lightsabers, is beautiful. Hailing from Earth 10330, Wade Wilson was a new student of the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys, and he really was a troubled boy. Unfortunately, this means he was a little bit of a loner. He got put in detention with a kid version of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, and so Wade and Scott decided to team up and escape from detention and go crash the prom so Scott could be with Jean Grey. At the prom, Wade ended up getting into a battle of fisticuffs with the kid-sized version of Logan, aka Wolverine, and the fight made the prom come to a halt and saw Kidpool get embarrassed in front of all the other kids. So he decided to leave, but just when that happened, he was confronted by 616 Deadpool and joined up with his good guy Deadpool Core. Number 8. Hulkpool. Hulked Out Heroes is a nice, sweet little 2-issue comic that is honestly just the best. Basically, MODOK and the leader had gamma mutated a few pretty powerful heroes like Thor and the Thing and Wolverine and a whole bunch of them, and that on its own is dope. But they also gamma mutated Deadpool so that he is now Hulkpool, and he and Bob decide to head off to do their own thing. They head to Thunder's base and use her time machinery, and Bob sends Hulkpool back through time with the intention of crushing his normal weak Deadpool self. Because, I don't know, I guess paradoxes don't exist here. Instead, Bob accidentally sends Hulkpool on a trip through time, starting in 1717 on board a pirate ship where Ben Grimm, the Thing, has taken on the role of Blackbeard. Hulkpool joins him as his first mate, and they face off against a giant squid until Bob sends them back even further and they come face to face with Devil Dinosaur. After that whole chaotic journey, all 3 of them are time displaced to the Wild West where, of all people, they run into Hawkeye. Hulkpool travels again, but this time he ends up at the exact moment when Captain America and Bucky Barnes are in the process of completing the mission where Bucky tragically passes away, quote unquote, because we know what actually happens. And Hulkpool stops the whole thing from happening in the first place. Not only that, but he helps Cap take down the Red Skull and Germany's leader in one go. Not bad. He stops Matt Murdock from getting covered in toxic waste, Doctor Strange from getting in his car crash, the Fantastic Four from going to space, Donald Blake from becoming Thor, Peter Parker from being bit by a spider, Tony Stark from being taken hostage, and Bruce Banner from being gamma irradiated. All before he finally faces himself from the day before, only to find out that he's created a whole new timeline and that pirate Ben Grimm became the first president of the United States, and Bob is hailed as a god. Number 7. Venompool. Venompool hails from Earth 90211 from a reality stuck in the 1980s. In the story, the Beyonder decided to live the life of the party, and Spider-Man is still bonded with the Venom symbiote. Well, when Deadpool is hired by Galactus to kill the Beyonder, Deadpool tracked down his target to a nightclub, but found he was enticed into the Beyonder's partying lifestyle, getting Jerry curls in the process. While hanging out with the Beyonder in a flying limousine, because of course, Spider-Man breaks into the car out of nowhere and demands Beyonder remove the symbiote costume from him. In a freak moment, Spider-Man is attacked by the limo driver, and the symbiote ends up bonding with Deadpool instead. After a while, the Beyonder got sick of the Deadpool/symbiote amalgamation and ditches him, which you can imagine didn't sit very well with Venompool. He ends up going back to his mission and tries to bring down the Beyonder with a weapon called the Recton Expungifier. There's a lot to this story, but I don't want to rob you the satisfaction of reading it yourself, so we're moving on. Number 6. Gwenpool. Gwenpool came from a universe a lot like ours, meaning superheroes were all fictional characters in her world with origins and stories printed in comic books. Well, Gwen was obsessed with them. Thanks to a series of events, when she wound up in the Marvel universe, she put on a costume and became a mercenary as Gwenpool. Gwen is a regular human, but she knew all this was fictional inside a comic book, which allows her to completely break the fourth wall, which has helped her snag victories on multiple occasions, not to mention the fact that she knows everything about pretty much every hero. Her knowledge that everything is in a comic book also allows her to completely detach from anyone she is hired to take down, making her a pretty effective merc. Despite that, Gwen has grown to care for the people that inhabit her adopted universe, though she continues to believe that she is a fictional character in a comic book. Gwen's chief enemy is MODOK, the mental organism designed only for killing. Gwen was part of MODOK's mercenary group for a short time until the boss realized that Gwen possessed no actual skills at all, making him pretty peed off. Gwenpool is awesome, and she has the ability to bring people into the space between comic panels, which is just a level of meta that I'm not ready for right now. Number 5. Death Mask Deadpool. When Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, comes up with a revolutionary new method for dealing with cancer, he removes a tumor from Wade Wilson's head. What I think no one expected was that removing this tumor had the side effect of making Wade's insanity completely disappear. Deadpool suddenly becomes hyper intelligent, and his insanity instead turns him into becoming a super criminal with a super criminal empire. Now going by Death Wish and looking a hell of a lot like Dr. Doom, Wade basically is Dr. Doom, taking his place as King of Latveria and wearing a super sweet death mask armor. He plans to attack the alternate Earth 616 Deadpool, but when he's defeated, he goes and makes a deal with Mephisto to unleash a literal hell on his Earth. Number 4. Captain Universe Pool. In the comic Deadpool v Thanos, in the Patchwork Battle World, Thanos and Deadpool team up to look for Lady Death. Turns out that the entity had been kidnapped by a rival cosmic force, Eternity. And it turns out that Eternity is pretty peeved about being ridiculed and separated by the Infinity Gems, and Galactus' hunger, and the Annihilation Wave, and Death's Embrace. I don't know. The in-betweener comes in to talk some sense into Eternity, but meanwhile, Deadpool sees an opportunity and tries freeing Mistress Death, which didn't go so smoothly, and a fight breaks out. Thanos betrays Deadpool and starts to completely pummel Eternity, a cosmic entity, which makes no sense to me. Deadpool attacks Thanos, who simply throws the merc with the mouth into Eternity. Now this is where it starts to get wacky, apparently. Inside the cosmic being, Wade meets the Unipower, who bestows that power onto Wade, and boom, enter Captain Universe Deadpool. With his newfound power, he was able to go blow for blow with a death-powered Thanos. Deadpool doesn't technically win, but Death is able to see the error of her ways, and she takes back her power from Thanos, causing Grimace to explode. Nice. Number 3. Ladypool. Wanda Wilson is the Deadpool of Earth 3010. But since she is one of a very few female Deadpools, she naturally is titled Ladypool. Lady Deadpool joined the side of a group of rebels fighting against loyalists in the United States in her own universe, that were led by Ladypool's nemesis, General America. Yes, that's Captain America, but a general. According to Wanda, the fight started when fascists in the federal government started to impose their will on the people. As a result, a schism in Congress occurred, generals took sides, and states declared independence, which led to the current predicament. Eventually, she is assisted by 616 Deadpool, and she ends up becoming a main part of the good Deadpool Corps, and eventually she becomes the leader of that group, sacrificing herself and the Corps' ship in a fight against the evil Deadpool Corps and Galactus Pool. Number 2. Ultimate Deadpool. The Ultimate Universe has a lot of fresh takes on 616 heroes, but Deadpool got some rather unique changes that I'm not sure how I feel about, honestly. It's giving me strong X-Men Origins Wolverine vibes, which came out 3 years after this comic, so I'm not saying this comic inspired whatever they did to Deadpool in that movie, but I can't say that it didn't. Just saying, pointing that out. The Ultimate Marvel version of Deadpool was a sergeant in the military named Wade Wilson. He's grim, he's angry, he's way too serious, and he's also an incredibly racist mutant hater. Oh, he was also a cyborg with incredible strength, retained his signature healing factor, and instead of just being disfigured, he had no skin at all, and is missing parts of his skull. So his head instead is encased in a clear plastic helmet for everyone to see. Yay! Deadpool leads the Reavers, who are also pretty horrible in trying to take out prominent mutants, but on live television, like it was for sport or something. Thankfully, Ultimate Deadpool was taken off of the board by 616 Deadpool and Deadpool Kills Deadpool in 2013. Deadpool. Number 1. Dreadpool. In the Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe storyline, Deathpool murders every single superhero there is in his quest to end all of creation. Deathpool even rises against the divine powers that created the Marvel Universe, meaning the literal writers, and he won. We're introduced to this character being dragged to Psycho Man by the X-Men in an attempt to cure Wade of his insanity. Psycho Man's procedure silenced all the voices in Deadpool's head, but brought out a new one, the Ultimate Murderer. This voice is aware of himself being a fictional character and is adamantly convinced that his only salvation is to kill everything there is. Dreadpool went on a complete killing spree, ending the lives of the X-Men, the Avengers, Doctor Doom, Taskmaster, Thanos, and Galactus, but he didn't stop there. The Ultimate Murderer persona had gone so far that he decided to eradicate other versions of himself, namely the 616 Deadpool. Dreadpool and Deadpool each made their own Deadpool cores, assembled from alternate Deadpools throughout the multiverse, and they went head to head. But you can read that for yourself.
At number 10 is Feral Wolverine. This version of the hero is not given added power by any upgrades or magical augmentation, but by his own sheer will to cause harm. What happens is that Wolverine's adamantium is ripped out by Magneto through the pores of his skin, which is, of course, very painful and traumatic. So he gets extremely angry and loses all control as he's thrown into a blind rage to get revenge on Magneto. But aside from Wolverine's pain-driven fury, Magneto actually activates a new mutation that he didn't know was being held back by the adamantium in Wolverine. And this mutation basically turns him into an animalistic version of himself that is closer to an untamed beast than his usual strategic and tactically aware self. The only downside of this version of Wolverine is that he's so unhinged that he's not able to control any strategic approach to battle. At number 9 is Helverine. When the Red Right Hand sets their sights on Wolverine, acting on their strange grudge against him specifically, they banish Logan's soul and replace it with that of a demon. So, a demonic version of Wolverine is created and makes the superhero even more powerful, sending him into a demonic rage, killing many of Logan's friends in one bloody frenzy. It takes a lot of effort for the X-Men to finally subdue Helverine, requiring the whole team alongside Jean Grey as well as Logan's own soul to battle the demon out of Wolverine's body for good. This version of Wolverine shows how strong it is in a very short time, leaving Logan's friends and us readers alike hoping that the Red Right Hand will finally just leave Logan alone. At number 8 is Laura Kinney. Laura Kinney is the result of a top secret program that makes an effort to create another Wolverine. But when they can't find a subject to survive the process of bonding the adamantium to their bones, they decide to just clone Logan himself. But during this process, the Y chromosome is damaged and they instead create a female clone that they call X-23. She only has the 2 claws on either hand, but that typically isn't a hindrance for her since she does get empowered by the Enigma Force a number of times. And if you're not already aware, the Enigma Force is what gives Captain Universe his power. So Laura is really not to be messed with. She's also just a great fighter on her own, and she eventually escapes the lab and becomes a very successful hero by her own right. At number 7 is Lord of Vampires Wolverine. In What If number 24, Wolverine is bitten by Lord Dracula, which turns him into a vampire. And after some biting and killing as a blood-sucking ghoul, Wolverine decides he has to kill Lord Dracula and become the Lord of the Vampires himself. Then Wolverine goes and kills most of the X-Men, turning a few of them into vampires as well, and then controlling them and others with hypnosis. With his vampire army, he goes forth to take on all of New York City and then eventually the world. It's a fun, quick issue that explores an interesting question in a what-if context, but if you really take the character seriously and consider his powers, Lord of Vampires Wolverine is a very powerful variant. Wolverine is already an extremely powerful superhero, but with the ability to turn others into mindless vampires and then control them with mind powers, he becomes nearly unstoppable. At number 6, we have Zombie Wolverine. This variant is, on its own, maybe not the most powerful out of them all, considering he's made up of decaying flesh. but due to circumstance, he actually ends up being a real issue for his friends and enemies alike. During a fight against the Silver Surfer, this version of Wolverine loses his right arm and actually has it replaced by a cybernetic one. Not only that, but Zombie Wolverine also gains cosmic powers after killing and then devouring the corpse of the Silver Surfer. So aside from an insatiable hunger as a driving force for this variant, he's also got the whole cosmic power thing on his side, as well as a nifty cybernetic arm. Beware of Zombie Wolverine, he means business. At number 5 we have Dark Claw. This is a fun one, but it's also arguably a very underestimated Wolverine variant, all things considered. For those of you who don't know Darkclaw, he's basically a combination between Wolverine and Batman. The Amalgam comics showed different heroes from the Marvel Universe merging with those of the DC Universe, and the result of Wolverine and Batman coming together is a pretty powerful new hero. There's not much more to report than the obvious, which is just that Wolverine and Batman's abilities are combined. But if you really think about it, there's only power gain for Wolverine in this amalgamation. With all the power that Wolverine already has, met with the innovative genius mind of Bruce Wayne, the possibilities for this variant are basically endless. At number 4 we have General James Howlett from Earth 12025. Appearing mostly in Volume 2 of Extreme X-Men, this highly decorated hero is known to be the most powerful in this reality. This version of Wolverine's bones are actually coated in adamantine, which is a mystical metal that comes from the ancient Greek gods of Olympus. The metal keeps him immune from telepathy, and it's also known to be more powerful than adamantium. Adamantine, adamantium. They're different. Adamantium, of course, being the one that the original Wolverine relies on. The adamantine is so strong that it even keeps Wolverine safe from attacks from Thor's hammer. Plus, this guy has some pretty cool titles attached to his name and is an explorer working for the government of Canada. So he just seems like a cool dude on top of everything else. Did I say dude? I meant god. He's basically a god. At number 3 we have Weapon H. So this variant is the result of what happens when you mix together Wolverine and the Hulk into one guy. And what you get is a superpowered Hulk with an adamantium skeleton and of course the retractable claws. But he still has the ability to switch back to his human form on command despite his frame being coated in the metal. The only downside for this variant that I could think of is the same thing that gives the Hulk a disadvantage. His rage can sometimes be too much for him to handle, keeping him from making sound tactical decisions at times. But regardless, the sheer power that this variant holds is enough, as Dr. Alba theorizes, to kill every living thing on Earth. This is a relatively new character, so I'm interested to see where he goes. I guess we'll all see. At number 2 we have Weapon Omega. Aside from just looking pretty cool, Weapon Omega is undoubtedly one of the most powerful variants of Wolverine in any reality. This guy has all the powers of Wolverine with the added abilities of Apocalypse. So yes, he's basically immortal and can teleport, and also use mind control, shift in size on command, and fly. Not to mention the huge blaster that's replaced one of his claw arms, and the crazy armor that he's got equipped at all times as well. Also remember, he's still got his healing abilities, even if someone did get close enough to do any damage on this guy, which I doubt is a very easy feat to accomplish, and sort of pointless considering he never dies. Weapon Omega eventually takes over for Apocalypse as leader of the Horsemen, solidifying his position as one of the most powerful variants of Wolverine in his political influence as well. Finally, at number 1, I'm putting Phoenix Force Wolverine, because there's really no comparing Phoenix Force to any other entity in terms of power, at least as far as Wolverine variants go. When possessed by Phoenix Force, Wolverine has the ability to manipulate matter at will, as well as warping reality and the fabric of the multiverse. Not to mention, if he wanted to, he could do what Dark Phoenix does and gain more power by consuming the energy of stars throughout the cosmos, if he so chooses. It's almost like his adamantium claws don't really add any extra gusta to his power set at this point, because instead of taking a stab at someone, he could just, you know, think about them being a pile of ashes and it would happen. He's such a powerful variant that he eventually reigns over the cosmos in a future alternate reality, something that old King Thor observes for himself. So yeah, Phoenix Force Wolverine at number 1.
Number 10, Deadpool Samurai. So I actually have this manga. Well, I have part 1 of it, the first volume, I think. I haven't read it yet, but I have flipped through it, and honestly, it looks pretty interesting. It caught my eye when I was at an Indigo, and I was like, I have to read this at some point. This is the Deadpool of Earth 346. He is actually a character in a manga that Marvel made in collaboration with Shonen Jump Plus. If you can believe that. He was created by Sanshiro Kasama and Hikaru Usagi. He made his first appearance in Marvel x Shonen Jump Plus Super Collaboration issue number 5. Marvel has actually collaborated with Shonen a few different times. I think Deadpool's appearance was part of their 3rd collaboration together, which to me is crazy. And in terms of his own series, Deadpool Samurai, he's had actually 15 volumes so far. That's wild. With the most recent one coming out last year in 2022 in June. Must be good if they got at least 15 volumes of it. Someone must be loving this. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you're not already, why not take a second and subscribe? You should do it. Deadpool Samurai would do it. Number 9, Ultimate Deadpool. If you are more interested in hearing about a version of Deadpool who is completely different from his usual 616 or MCU self, Ultimate Universe Deadpool might be your style. This version of the character first appeared in the Earth 1610 reality, but he actually also went multiversal in his adventures with the rest of the evil Deadpool Corps. While Wade Wilson himself is usually known as being a friend to the mutants, even when they ask him to please not be so friendly with them, this version of the character, known as Wade Wilson, actually hunts mutants instead. Where Deadpool usually has a darkness within himself that he kinda hides with a sometimes dark sense of humor, this version of Deadpool is more just straight up dark, believing in human rights over mutant rights. Actually, I don't think he even thinks mutants should have rights. He's like, no rights for the mutants. Number 8, Deadman Wade. Deadman Wade kinda reminds me in terms of his look of the DC Comics Deadman, but in terms of what he's like when it comes to his powers and abilities, he is still very much similar to Earth 616's Deadpool. This version of Wade got his powers from Apocalypse. He ended up being a member of Apocalypse's team of Pale Riders, his group of elite assassins. He made his first appearance in the 1995 comic Excalibur in issue number 1. He would end up being killed in his universe when Nightcrawler removed his head from his body and teleported away with it. However, he'd later be resurrected only to be killed again when he ended up joining the evil Deadpool Corps in the Deadpool Kills Deadpool series. Number 7, Venompool. Oddly enough, when it comes to Venompool, there has actually been more than one of this alternate Deadpool created. As you may have guessed from the name alone, Venompool is a combination of Venom and Deadpool. Initially originated as a concept in the What If comic that answered the question, what if Venom possessed Deadpool? Here Venompool also sported a Jerry curl perm hairstyle for some reason. I guess he thought it looked cool. There's also an even more epic looking version of this character though, who appears in Marvel Contest of Champions, which I highly recommend you look up, although you could probably see him in this video, probably put a picture of him up, but yeah, he looks scary. Number 6, Deadpool 2099. Because after the success of Spider-Man 2099 in the comics, every character was getting their own version. Although it might surprise some Deadpool fans to know that it actually took a bit longer for Deadpool to get his. Making her appearance in 2016, Warda Wilson is the futuristic daughter of Shikla and Deadpool. She's the daughter we never got from that couple since they ended up breaking up and getting divorced. Sad. The original version of Warda appeared in Jerry Dugan's Deadpool run in issue number 6. Here we are introduced to her as Wade's daughter from a version of the 2099 future. She actually hails originally from Earth 16356, which is not the same reality that Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099 hails from, considered the main 2099 reality of Earth 928. Warda becomes Deadpool in this future despite hating her father, who had already broken things off with her mom before she was even born. Number 5, MCU. It's weird to call Ryan Reynolds' take on the character the Marvel Cinematic Universe version, but truly, he is now officially. Deadpool will be joining the MCU with his next motion picture, and I honestly couldn't be more excited to see what that could mean for the character. I personally am wondering if this is the film that sees the X-Men properly and finally introduced to the cinematic universe now that the Fox merger is complete. I mean, we've been waiting for a long time. Just give us something. I know Wolverine will be there, but I need more. However, at the same time, technically the first MCU mutant may have been Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel. We'll have to wait and see though, as we hopefully learn more about Kamala and what is going on with her her in the Marvels film. But based on what's happening with her in the comics, I'm thinking that's where we're headed. Why do I love MCU Deadpool? Probably because he was the version of the character who got me the most interested in diving deeper into Wade Wilson's tragic and often hilarious adventures in the comics. Seriously, I saw the movies, loved it, and then I was like, I gotta read all these Deadpool comics, and then I did it, and I loved it. It was a good time. You should do it too, if you haven't already. Number 4. Fox Original. Technically, there is another live-action version of Deadpool also running around in the Marvel Universe, played as well by Ryan Reynolds. Or well, used to be running around in the Marvel Universe, not so much anymore. This version of the character, however, was much less comic book accurate, appearing in the Fox X-Men spin-off film X-Men Origins Wolverine, which of course focused solely on Wolverine's origin story. In the film, Ryan Reynolds plays Wade Wilson, an overly talkative and jokey mercenary who later becomes the Merc without a mouth after being experimented on himself by Weapon X and becoming their pawn to be used in a fight against Wolverine. I know way too much about why this was all done and the plans for this version of the character and what was going to happen with it, but let's just keep going. Despite how inaccurate and goofy this version of the character ended up being, he still paved the way for the other, more comic book accurate adaptation that Reynolds would also later portray, also working once again with Fox. Although this time doing the character some very deserved justice, I think, especially after this version exists. In Deadpool 2, Deadpool also gets to travel back in time to clean up this completely weird mistake of an adaptation by killing this version of the character. So, yay! Number 3. Warda Wilson. I know what you're thinking. Didn't we already talk about Warda as Deadpool 2099? Well, that's actually not the only version of Warda, or Warda as Deadpool, in the multiverse, if you can believe it. I actually wonder where is the alternate version of Warda who just becomes Queen of the Underworld like her mom. This version of Warda, though, also did not do that. Instead, she once again followed in her father's footsteps in this reality. This version of Warda as Deadpool hails from 2022's Spider-Man 2099 Exodus. This version of the character was created by Steve Orlando and Kim Jacinto. I think this makes sense considering that when I read Orlando's stuff, it also kind of reminds me of Dugan's writing sometimes, and you know, Dugan is the one that originally gave us Warda, and I say that in a good way too. I like Orlando and I like Dugan, so it's a good thing. The reality this Warda hails from is also sadly not the main 2099 reality of Earth 928, but instead the other alternate reality of the 2099 future, there are so many, known aptly as Earth 2099, which I actually like better for that Earth. I'm just like, yeah, why don't we just call it Earth 2099? It's a lot cleaner in my mind. Number 2. Gwenpool. Technically an alternate of both Gwen Stacy and Deadpool combined. Gwendolyn Poole existed originally in a world where there were no superheroes, or rather, like in our world, where superheroes only exist in stories, comics, cartoons, and films. While never confirmed, her home reality, because of this fact, is actually suspected to be the same one that we exist in now, designated Earth 1218 in the comics. She eventually comes to Earth 616, and because heroes do exist here, she sets out to become one herself. However, due to a mistake on her form when she was getting her suit made, her codename was believed to be Gwenpool, when in reality, Gwenpool, with an E at the end, is really just her actual name. While she looks like Gwen Stacy, she acts more like Deadpool, although I'd argue she is less grating than he is, and has a bit more charm than the original as a Deadpool alternate. I also really love her suit. I gotta do a Gwenpool cosplay at some point. I love Gwenpool, she's so cool. That rhymes, you know it's true. Number 1. Wolverine Pool. We all know that Wolverine and Deadpool don't normally get along, though not for Deadpool's lack of trying, goodness knows. Deadpool is actually kind of fond of Wolverine and seems to genuinely enjoy teaming up with him at times, whereas Wolverine, like most supers out there, often gets easily annoyed if he's forced to work with Wade. Although to be fair to Wade, I mean Wolverine doesn't usually like working with people anyways, he's usually a pretty grumpy Gus. In fact, the last team up that I've seen of Wolverine and Deadpool in the Benjamin Percy run of Wolverine was honestly pretty brutal, with Wolverine doing all sorts of terrible things to Deadpool just because he could. It's so mean. However, Marvel also knows how much we love reading this ridiculous team up, and so what did they do? They made a literal mashup character known as Wolverine Pool. Wolverine Pool first appeared in the 2007 comic Cable and Deadpool issue number 46. Sadly, his existence was pretty short-lived as he died a few years later. He ended up choosing to join up with the evil Deadpool Corps during Deadpool Kills Deadpool, which ultimately meant he had to lose because he was evil and therefore die. Though I am confident that one day this character will be resurrected. I mean, he's made up of 2 insanely popular characters, so they have to bring him back, right? At some point. Eventually. We just gotta wait. I mean, he did die, I think, in 2013, so We might be waiting for a while, but I think he's coming back. Marvel, if you're watching this, do it for me.
In at number 10 is Popclaw. The Boys television show and the comics that inspired it are filled with characters that are meant to stand in for more well-known and beloved superheroes in an effort to tell a story about what superpowered beings might be like in the real world. Homelander is obviously meant to be Superman. The Deep is clearly a play on Aquaman, and Queen Maeve is very much Wonder Woman. One of the more minor characters to appear in both the comics and the TV show is Popclaw. Popclaw is a woman whose name is rather self-explanatory. She has claws that pop out of her arms with which she attacks her enemies. She's less one-to-one with Wolverine than other characters in the franchise are with their heroes that inspired them, but the influence is clearly there in aesthetic if nothing else. More comic-savvy fans will probably say she is more similar to X-23, and the creator of the character, Gareth Ennis, has said that she is actually inspired more by Scandal Savage, but for the more casual viewer of the TV show, the first thought that will pop in their mind when they see Popclaw and her powers will be, oh, it's Wolverine. So for that reason, she will get the number 10 slot on this list. But in at number 9 is Seahawk. This character from Image Comics is really Mark Barrows, who was hunting for underwater artifacts with his family when one of the artifacts blew up, resulting in his father's death, but him and his brother being granted superpowers and becoming the heroes Seahawk and Cold Snap. He would go on to join the superhero team the Brigade, and overall isn't that much of a Wolverine knockoff. However, the fact that one of the powers granted to him was accelerated healing, and the fact that his look is kinda Logan-esque with the fangs and the pointy-eared mask makes me think that Wolverine was at least an influence on the character, and makes me comfortable putting him on the low end of this list. Number 8. Warblade. Warblade is an often forgot character that was created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi for the DC Comics Wildstorm universe. Similar to what happened with Wolverine, Warblade was kidnapped and brainwashed so that he would be a member of an elite strike team known as the SHOC before breaking free of their control and joining a super team known as the Wildcats. Unlike Wolverine, he is not human and instead a Karen, an alien race who can shapeshift into a mercury-like substance. He can use this metal morphing ability to create claws, which he of course uses to attack his enemies. He is also a world-class martial artist with ties to Japan, but though he is clearly inspired by Wolverine, he is different enough to rank pretty low on this list as well. Number 7. Lobo. Lobo is a really interesting character as he was originally created as a joke. He was meant to be a parody of the gritty anti-heroes who were becoming so popular in the 90s by being a ridiculously buff space bounty hunter who would say goofy tough stuff and was just meant to be a big old goofy joke. One of the characters who was a main source of inspiration, according to one of its creators, Roger Slipher, was Wolverine, with his tendency to drink beer, constantly talk about how edgy and tough he was, and always talking about how he was the best there is at what he does. And what he does isn't very nice. Lobo also has a powerful healing factor, but that's neither here nor there. What the creators at DC Comics didn't anticipate was that the readers wouldn't take the character as a joke and would genuinely love the main man. Not once to look a gift horse in the mouth, DC quickly expanded the character to give him his own identity and gave him his own series of books. Number 6. Wildchild. First appearing in Alpha Flight number 1, Wildchild was created by John Byrne to be little more than a Wolverine-like character. Like Wolverine and Sabretooth, who isn't on this list as he was created to be a foil to Wolverine as opposed to a copy, Kyle Gibney has an animalistic nature as well as a healing factor and razor-sharp claws. Due to his freakish appearance, he was shunned by humanity until he was found by Department H, who made him a member of the Alpha Flight training program, Gamma Flight. When Alpha Flight had its funding pulled by the government and went independent, members of Beta and Gamma Flight were recruited by the evil Jerome Jackson to be members of the evil Omega Flight, who tried to defeat Alpha on 2 separate occasions in John Byrne's original run of the comics. When John Byrne left the book to work on the Incredible Hulk series, Wildchild was just a Wolverine-esque villain who had never really been an issue for the Alphas to defeat, but he was further developed by subsequent writers to be a more unique character, eventually joining the hero team and becoming Weapon Omega and dating fellow teammate Aurora. His morality has shifted quite a bit over the years, with him being a member of the Hellions, X-Factor, Weapon X, and becoming a good foil for Wolverine to fight rather than a throwaway copy he was originally intended to be. Number 5. Killraiser. Honestly, I feel like the motto of Image Comics in the 90s for the most part was, what if we took this character and then made them extreme? I mean, Spawn is undeniably cool and original as a character, but a lot of the characters sometimes feel like everything that was whack about comics in the 90s and turned to 11. Look at Killraiser for instance. He is a mute character who has sharp claws that come out of his gauntlets that he uses to fight and brutally tear to shreds his enemies, but then they took it the extra mile. This is how I think the pitch meeting went for this character. Dude, what if Wolverine had more claws? You mean, dude, like claws that come out of his feet as well? Nah, dude, what if Wolverine was just claws? Dude, what do you mean? I mean, what if he was mute so we never had to develop him as a character, and instead of being a dude that just has claws, he was just a dude made of claws, coming out of every part of his body. Dude, that's awesome. Number 4. Pantha. In one of the more brazen acts of copying the editor of New Titans in the 90s, Jonathan Tierson wanted to make the Titans more like the X-Men. Rather than taking, say, the element of using a superhero story as a metaphor for prejudice or introducing the more convoluted relationships between characters of the universe to tell long, overarching stories, they decided to take this not literally and make some characters that were more like popular characters from the Marvel team, one of which was Rosabelle Mendez. Otherwise known as Pantha or X-24, was a woman with cat-like abilities and claws who had a mysterious past she knew next to nothing about. She was subjected to experiments that granted her abilities, and she had to control her animal-like rage lest she lose control and scratch up everyone around her. Beyond that, the blue and yellow bodysuit with a yellow animal-like mask makes Pantha a pretty clear Wolverine ripoff. Of course, with the designation X-24, you might be forgiven for assuming she was a ripoff of Marvel's Laura Kinney, otherwise known as X-23. But Pantha does actually predate her by over a decade, with Pantha first appearing in the early 1991 and X-23 first appearing in late 2003. Number 3. Wolveroach. Cerebus was a comic book series that starred an aardvark named Cerebus, who works as a barbarian. The series was originally intended to be a parody of Marvel's take on the Conan the Barbarian series, but over time became an odd hodgepodge of experimental explorations of religion, gender, and politics. It had a large cast of characters, many of whom were clear parodies of iconic superheroes, but one of the more egregious ones was the Cockroach, who over the course of the story took on various superhero identities such as Moon Roach, Punisher Roach. However, the one that got the most attention was Wolveroach. As you can see, he was basically just Wolverine. The character's role in the story was to be a character who had an almost religious fervor about him, intended to parody the oversaturation of Wolverine in the comics at the time. As Dave Sim put it himself in an interview for Comics Journal in 1996, when it came time to do a Roach character that had the ambience of religious fervor surrounding him, it had to be Wolverine. The fact that Marvel got so upset about me putting Wolverine on the successive covers, it's not a parody, you are now stealing the central icon of our church. Well, there you go, yes, I picked the right one. I didn't realize I was going to be putting my foot in this badly. I thought parody's parody, but you can take the chalice they called Captain America and do a parody of that. You can take the subaltern and do Moon Knight, but by God, don't you touch our Wolverine. That's the center of our church. As you can tell, Dave had very strong feelings about how popular Wolverine was and seems to also be kind of a weird dude. Number 2. Ripclaw. Cyberforce was originally intended to be a spin-off series of X-Men and X-Force, before eventually ending up at Image Comics rather than Marvel. It makes sense that a few of the characters would bear some similarities to members of the various mutant teams. The character that clearly riffs on Wolverine is Ripclaw. Actually, a good rule of thumb, if a character has the word claw in his name, there's a 70% chance that they are a Wolverine knockoff, as you can tell from all the other parts on this list. Ripclaw got his abilities after the spirits of his ancestors left him the mystical power to take on animal-like abilities, which is nice for him. I mean, all I got from my ancestors was the ability to burn in the sun and a history of heart disease. Ripclaw was then captured by the evil Cyberdata Corporation, who brainwashed him and gave him cybernetic enhancements such as razor-sharp claws. He has a tendency to snap into an animal-like rage, and he has also got a healing factor. Wolverine. He's basically Wolverine. But in at number 1 is Deadlock. Another Image Comics character, John Locke was an ordinary lowlife until he had a heart attack and died. He was taken to the shady science group known as Project Born Again, who discovered that he had a latent mutant gene and they resurrected him, driving him completely insane in the process. He went on a rampage before being eventually taken out and resurrected again and assigned to be a member of the superhero team Bloodstrike. Just by looking at him, the Wolverine influence is pretty clear, with the fangs, the claws, and the mask that is exactly like Wolverine's, just a different color. It always baffles me when characters that are this similar to the characters they are ripping off of are created. Like, yeah, Wolverine was huge in the 90s, but if you create a character that is this similar, don't you realize that most people are just gonna be like, man, I'd rather just go buy a Wolverine comic?
Gwenpool, the ultimate it girl. She was featured on a variant cover for Deadpool's Secret Wars #2, not in it, just on the cover. Fans loved her aesthetic though, and soon she was being cosplayed all over the place. Seeing how much fans loved the character design, Marvel decided to make her the starring character in a one-shot, later a full series. Technically, she was first featured as the backup story on a Howard the Duck comic, but her first comic, just hers, was Gwenpool Special 1, and then her series was The Unbelievable Gwenpool. After that ended, she had a limited series in 2019 called Gwenpool Strikes Back. Apparently, she is from the real world. She wasn't living the life she wanted to here. She was unemployed and a high school dropout, and her bright spot was the Marvel comics. Her and her brother figured out how to transport themselves into the Marvel universe. When she gets there, she orders an all-pink costume from a super tailor and retcons the Marvel universe into thinking she's a mutant. She has a lot of fun and looks great doing it. I get why people cosplayed her so much. I too want her pink heart umbrella. As a big fan of comic books and breaker of the fourth wall, she used her knowledge of comic tropes to avoid some catastrophes, and even used her vast knowledge to figure out the weaknesses of those she's fighting. Good news is, if you want your own Gwenpool, they make Funko Pops of her. Wizardpool shows up a whole 2 times in Deadpool Kills Deadpool, and yet he has my full attention. He is, unfortunately, on the side of the bad Deadpools. He has a normal Deadpool red costume, but the fun part is he's added a wizard hat and cape. Makes him pretty easy to identify. Wizardpool is very powerful. In issue 4 of Deadpool Kills Deadpool, he is seen sending an energy blast through Nightpool. Nightpool is in a suit of armor, so we know he's powerful enough to blast through Deadpool and metal. We don't see Wizardpool's demise, but at the end, it is pretty clear that only one Deadpool makes it out, and it is from 616. The only other Deadpool known to survive is Evil Deadpool. I predict that by the end of this video, pool will be a meaningless word to me. Wolverine Pool is double cool because he is both Wolverine and Deadpool. He's got all the mercenary skills of Deadpool with all the tricked out body parts of Wolverine. I'm talking the claws and the Atom Skeleton. We know this for a fact because when he gets incinerated in Deadpool Kills Deadpool, all that's left is a very shiny clawed set of bones. Wolverine Pool has all the scars of regular Deadpool, so we can assume that he either didn't get the healing factor or it works a bit slower. But either way, the last time he was seen is in issue 3. He is not to be confused with the Deadpool Wolverine that was genetically created. Speaking of, his name is Junior, and we meet him in Deadpool The End. He is technically only seen on 1 page, but we do know quite a bit about him. The End is all about Deadpool dreaming up different endings for himself. One of them is a world where his and Wolverine's DNA gets mixed up. A pharmaceutical company stole the DNA of the pair to create their Wolverine pool. They got Deadpool's DNA because he took a joke ancestry test 200 years ago. The result is a semi-horrifying, very big giant of a monster, plus a bunch of regular-sized human ones. It takes both heroes to take him and all the others down, but they also get taken down in the process. And do you know how hard it is to take down a Deadpool and a Wolverine? This particular ending for Deadpool is described as the bloodiest, and it is directly stated that Junior committed a mass ending of life. So that hybrid Wolverine pool must have put up a fight. It's definitely an interesting concept for a story. The last panel does have a brick wall that says break if the writers ever get writer's block, so maybe the story will come to light eventually. Maybe even in the new movie, wouldn't that be something? For someone filled with so much self-loathing, Deadpool sure can be full of himself. His ego has grown pretty big, and it's about to get planet-sized, literally. Ego Pool, that is Ego Deadpool, Deadpool is the Deadpool version of Ego the Planet. You may recognize that name from the MCU's Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as Star-Lord's dad. That's a planet. But that's not the case in the comics. Ego is still a living planet, just has no relation to Star-Lord. Which is good news. In the world of Ego Pool, we don't need a Star-Lord pool running around. If Ego Pool has all the powers of the original, which I'm assuming he does because most Deadpools that are other characters as Deadpools do. For example, Wolverine Pool has a super skeleton. Ego Pool then has the ability to shape its terrain at will, can absorb living things, and shoot powerful energy blasts, plus a whole lot more things you wouldn't want Deadpool to do. He's featured right alongside Hello Kitty Deadpool, who we'll get to later. Coming in hot, all the way from Earth 51,315 is Panda Pool. Panda really does come in hot. He bursts into the frame and takes out Deathlock Pool in the process. His official description is, he is no mere panda, he is Panda Pool, the species that endangers you. Love that, and he's on the side of the good Deadpools. Amazing! We know he is very strong and doesn't speak, he just growls, but he understands English, so I'm guessing that means there are people in his universe. On the Marvel Strike Force website, it says Pandapool is specifically a giant panda with a love for bamboo and explosions. Pandapool can fight. He goes on a mini mission with Deadpool and takes out a bunch of other evil pools on the way. Which, do you know how hard it is to successfully take out a Deadpool again? Personally, I've never done that, so I wouldn't know firsthand, but it looks really hard. Panda heads into the nexus of all realities with Deadpool True, and the good Deadpools fight the evil ones. Pandapool puts up a great fight, taking out I think Whalepool, but he doesn't make it in the end. It's very tragic. Deadpool True has a movie moment screaming no at the sky while Squirrelpool and Birdpool fight in the back. It's beautiful. Pandapool, you will be missed. You've heard of Pandapool now, but what about Birdpool? Popular Deadpool variant Dreadpool enters the nexus of all realities, a cross-dimensional gateway that gives you access to everything, every reality, even the realities between realities. So unsurprisingly, you might meet some weird versions of yourself. In this case, Dreadpool, who is Deadpool, but a Deadpool that wants to kill everything, saw himself as a bird. Birdpool is small but mighty. He's got a little mask on and a rocket on his back. He was one of the many Deadpools in Deadpool Fights Deadpool and was last seen fighting Squirrelpool. We know that at the end of it all, the only pools left were evil and dead, so I don't think the bird made it. He was a snitch though. The phrase a little birdie told me about him. He relayed the info about where the other Deadpool army was to Dreadpool. I've been calling him Birdpool, and that might not even be his name. The little guy went unnamed, so fans have assigned the name based on the Deadpool naming style. Pandapool, Dogpool, etc. In Dogpool's universe and Pandapool's universe, we think there are people. Just Deadpool is a dog. So there is a chance that in Birdpool's universe, he is just a bird with a rocket launcher, and I feel like if I were to walk around New York long enough, I would just see this. I will admit that Beard of Bees you may have seen before, because he's appeared twice. The first was in 2010's Deadpool issue 1000. In this issue, Hot Pants Zeus creates a bunch of Deadpool clones to fight each other, average Zeus activities. Beard of Beespool gets a panel to himself showing him off as one of the many new Deadpool clones. After the Deadpool brawl, we don't see Bees again, so he's presumed dead until 2013 when Deadpool Kills Deadpool comes out. He is in issue 2, and this time actually doesn't make it out. Confirmed hit on him, we see it with our own eyes. He was offed because he betrayed the evil Deadpools by feeding info to the good Deadpools. Since Beard of Beespool is known to be a clone of Deadpool True, that means he's got all the powers and strength of the original. It's unclear where he had been hanging out for the 3 years between the comics, but I'd love to find out. Hopefully a one-shot comes out or something explaining the life of the bee guy. We are heading into Jurassic Park territory now with Dinosaur Pool, or Deadpool Dinosaur. He was, once again, featured in Deadpool Kills Deadpool. He is a combination of Deadpool and Devil Dinosaur. Devil Dinosaur is a mutant T-Rex, meaning he has human-level intelligence and super dino durability and strength. In the Deadpool comics, he is partnered with Moon Boy, pictured riding on his back. As cool as he is, we must stay focused because Dinopool is not one of the good guys. Because of this, he and Moon Boy perished at the hands of Deadpool True. Deadpool Dinosaur was from Earth TRN 321. Presumably he had a healing factor like Deadpool True. He just wasn't given a chance to use it as he quickly got incinerated. Deadpool beat him once, and I also wouldn't want to fight the dino a second time no matter how cool he is. It was only a matter of time before a Hello Kitty Deadpool hit the panel. Hello Kitty Pool is featured in Doom War 5 from 2010. She's so cute, she has her own little suit, ears covered, 2 swords at her disposal. In Deadpool Kills Deadpool, which came out in 2013, we learned that because Deadpool is the only character to know that the world is fake, he can technically create new versions of himself if he thinks them up. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Hello Kitty Pool came to be. The comics and films touch on how much of a fan Deadpool is of a cute cat. There's a few variant covers of Deadpool surrounded by Hello Kitty, and in the film, some Hello Kitty lip gloss and a pretty famous Hello Kitty backpacker scene tumbling around. The only person the official Deadpool film account follows is Hello Kitty, and it's been like that for a minimum of 8 years. Disney currently does not own the rights to Hello Kitty, but I'm holding out hope that Hello Kitty Pool will make a surprise cameo in the upcoming movie Deadpool and Wolverine.
Coming in at number 10, we've got a video game honorable mention with the Wolverine symbiote from the game Spider-Man Web of Shadows. In this title's storyline, Wolverine has traveled to New York City to deal with a growing symbiote infestation, and even briefly fights Spider-Man when he believes the wall crawler is actually Venom. Unfortunately for Wolverine, he finds himself overwhelmed by actual symbiotes on top of a church and attacks Spider-Man again as the Wolverine symbiote. With all of his usual healing abilities on top of all the symbiote enhancements that the alien parasites offer, this version of Wolverine might just be one of the grossest versions we've ever gotten to see. Coming in at number 9, we have the brainwashed Wolverine of Earth 14850. At one point in the regular Marvel universe, Wolverine was captured and brainwashed by Hydra in order to assassinate the Avengers, but luckily was able to be deprogrammed before he did any real damage. On this alternate Earth, however, the deprogramming never took place, and Wolverine's killing spree of superpowered heroes was able to last for months. Armed with all of his incredible abilities, absolutely no remorse, and the addition of Hydra-developed teleporting technology that nullified even Wolverine's usual weaknesses, and this was a horrifying enemy that even the Avengers couldn't handle. Coming in at number 8, we've got a live-action detour with X-24 from the 2017 film Logan. An allegedly perfect clone of Wolverine, but with none of the compassion or humanity, X-24 was treated like an attack dog and followed the orders of Xander Rice to hunt down and capture the real Wolverine and the young mutant girl he was protecting. Based on Wolverine during his prime years, he was able to physically overcome the true Wolverine and was only able to be defeated at the last minute by a bullet made of pure adamantium right to the skull. Coming in at number 7, we have the vicious Vampire Lord Wolverine. In an alternate universe where vampires have launched an all-out assault on the United States, most of the X-Men are bitten and mind-controlled by the Lord of the Vampires, Dracula. Unfortunately for Dracula, however, Wolverine's healing ability allows him to regain his own mental control despite becoming a vampire, and thus is able to overthrow Dracula and become their leader. Consumed by a bloodlust that amplifies his already pretty terrifying rage, Wolverine and his vampire army are able to wipe out most other superpowered life on the planet, only finally being defeated by the combined forces of Doctor Strange and the Punisher as a vampire hunting duo. Coming in at number 6, we have the infamous Zombie Wolverine. Many superheroes and villains of the Marvel Universe found themselves infected with an undead plague on the alternate world of Earth 2149, but Wolverine might be the character who experienced the oddest side effects from becoming a member of the Zombie Legion. Initially fighting alongside Magneto to help defeat the undead threat with the X-Men, Wolverine was eventually bitten and overwhelmed while attempting to defend Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s main base of operations. Turning against Magneto, this version of Wolverine slowly discovered his healing factor was affected by his zombification, meaning his arms could no longer support the adamantium claws throughout his body, attacking any living thing he could with the shreds that remained of his limbs. This version of Wolverine would go on to even consume Galactus, becoming a cosmic undead threat to the rest of this very doomed Marvel Universe. Coming in at number 5, we have the villainous Wolverine of an alternate future, Saberclaw. Hailing from Earth 982, this son of Wolverine and an unknown woman absolutely hates his original father, so much so that it seems to have literally changed him into appearing more reminiscent of Sabretooth than his actual dad. Wearing adamantium sheaths on his bone claws to make them even deadlier, Saberclaw was briefly a member of this universe's Sinister Six before eventually being convinced to put his differences aside with his father and help defend the world from the threat of Galactus and the daughter of Loki. Just another day in complicated comic book family dynamics. Coming in at number 4, we have Daken, the dark son of Wolverine. Named after the Japanese term for mongrel dog, Daken is the tragic child that Wolverine never knew about, his mother being murdered before Wolverine even knew he had a kid. Cut from his mother's body, Daken was raised to hate his father, and in their very first encounter, slashed open his stomach and left him to die. With the same incredible healing abilities and bone claws as his dad, Daken has had a long road of trying to find his proper place in the world, and has fought on the sides of both good and evil over the course of his tragic life, but hopefully he'll stay more on the side of good going forward. Coming in at number 3, we have Hydra Wolverine. Hailing from the reality known as Earth 1720, this version of Wolverine is fully committed to the evil ideology of the organization Hydra, complete with a new green and yellow color scheme to his costume. Married to this universe's version of the Invisible Woman, who also happens to be this universe's version of Madam Hydra, this Wolverine was apparently successful in conquering his home reality along with his lover, and has since begun to travel the multiverse searching for more worlds to destroy in the universe's most twisted romantic honeymoon. Luckily for the Marvel Multiverse, this Wolverine would be defeated by a variant of Kitty Pryde and the rest of the Exiles, who wound up tricking him into stabbing himself with his own adamantium claws. Better luck next time, Hydra. Coming in at number 2, we have the Wolverine from the Age of Apocalypse universe. In an alternate world where Charles Xavier is dead and Magneto is leader of the X-Men, Wolverine is a brutal warrior named Weapon X who has to be constantly subdued by the psychic abilities of Jean Grey in order to be a functioning member of the X-Men team. Eventually losing a hand while going on a suicide mission to rescue this version of Jean from a version of Cyclops, this version of Wolverine for a time had heroic ambitions, but gave them up after being granted the power of the Celestials and turned into Weapon Omega, now determined to bring about the evolutionary future that he'd initially stopped the mutant apocalypse from achieving, and declaring war against all of humanity. This new Weapon Omega is the farthest thing possible from Wolverine's usual heroics. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have Brother Mutant, an evil variant of Wolverine combined with some of his greatest allies and greatest foes. On Earth 127, a male variant of the Scarlet Witch, known as the Scarlet Warlock, attempted to cast a spell that would transfer Wolverine's adamantium skeleton to Magneto, thus giving Magneto an incredible power boost given his magnetic abilities. However, something with the spell went wrong, and the Scarlet Warlock, Wolverine, Magneto, Quicksilver, and the villain Mesmero were all merged into a singular being known as Brother Mutant. All 5 of these mutants' powers combined into one villainous figure, Brother Mutant was such a powerful threat that a multiversal team of other, more heroic Wolverines had to be assembled specifically to stop him, just to ensure that all of that power wasn't unleashed on the rest of the Marvel Multiverse.
Number 10, Deadpool Dinosaur. Deadpool Dinosaur is a version of Deadpool that is a T-Rex. The main thing that indicates his Deadpool-ness is that he's wearing a Deadpool mask and is part of the evil Deadpool Corps. The evil Deadpool Corps are a group of villainous Deadpools originally led by an alternate Deadpool, Dreadpool. They aim to eliminate all Deadpools across the multiverse. Deadpool works to stop them and annihilate this villainous group in the story Deadpool Kills Deadpool with the help of his own good team of Deadpools, known simply as the Deadpool Corps. Deadpool Dinosaur is accompanied by his own Moon Boy, who looks a lot like Logan in the face, if I'm being honest. Is this just me noticing this? This version of Moon Boy also fights from Deadpool Dinosaur's saddle with a big gun. The two are basically an alternate version of Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur, with of course some Deadpool mixed in there. Number 9. Deadpool. This version of Deadpool is basically a combination of former evil AIM leader MODOK and Deadpool himself. One can assume he has the brilliant mind of MODOK but also has the brilliant fighting skills of Deadpool, even with his tiny, disproportionate arms. Not only does Deadpool seem to fight with swords, but he also has 2 turret firearms on his head. While MODOK stands for mental organism designed only for killing, Deadpool supposedly stands for destructive engine of assassination, despite panpygoptosis, obsessed with opponent liquidation. Number 8. Venompool. In a story that is continued through various What If issues, we get to meet Venompool. Venompool is an alternate version of Deadpool from the alternate Earth of 90211. Here Deadpool ends up becoming bonded with the Venom symbiote during his time with the Beyonder, following a run-in with Peter Parker, who was bonded with the symbiote at the time. The symbiote leaves a defeated Peter Parker for Deadpool and bonds with him. Later on in his life, this is a path that leads Deadpool to end up killing all the heroes of his universe, whom he does not find attractive. He does let the attractive ones live. I guess that's something, I guess. Following a therapy session with Doc Samson, who this version of Deadpool also promptly kills thereafter, he realizes he needed to be true to who he was. This allowed Venompool to accept that who he was a massive jerk, and prompted him to use a weapon called the Retcon Expungifier to wipe out the entire universe. Basically, he's in the running for being the biggest jerk of all the Deadpool alternates. Number 7. Cesspool. We don't know that much about Cesspool. Like many of the darkest alternates of Deadpool, Cesspool was part of the evil Deadpool Corps. What we do know of him is that he has a terrifying appearance and mutation. He's completely covered in mouths with razor sharp teeth and uses these to try and devour his opponents. Yipes. This is like something straight out of a horror movie. Number 6. Galactipool. This alternate version of Deadpool was too dark for even main continuity Deadpool himself. Galactipool shows up just as we thought the fight was coming to a close between the Deadpool Corps and the evil Deadpool Corps. Galactipool is a combination of Galactus and Deadpool, and Wade wondered where in the heck the evil Deadpool Corps even found an alternate like this Galactus Pool. Fortunately, despite him likely having I guess some kind of intense cosmic power, alternate Deadpool, Lady Deadpool, manages to defeat Galactipool using the Deadpool Corps ship B. Arthur. Sadly, this was the end of B. Rest in peace, B. Number 5. Wolverine Pool. What happens when you take Deadpool and Wolverine and mix them together? You get Wolverine Pool. Wolverine Pool comes from the alternate Earth of 1946. Wolverine Pool is the ultimate Weapon X program weapon. He is a version of Wade Wilson who had adamantium bonded to his skeleton. He belonged to the evil Deadpool Corps and was killed during a fight with the non-evil Deadpool Corps. It is assumed that he of course has a healing factor, but not one strong enough to regenerate himself when reduced to just a skeleton, and likely a healing factor that was weaker than both the main continuity Wolverine and the main continuity Deadpool. Number 4. Red Tool. Red Tool is actually not from an alternate Marvel universe, but is actually from DC Comics. Oddly enough, while Marvel's Deadpool was created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza to be a parody of DC's Deathstroke, DC then decided to themselves parody Marvel's own parody of their character, creating Red Tool, who is a parody of Deadpool. He's a parody of a parody. Still, just because we are stuck in a weird perpetuation of parody doesn't mean that Red Tool has to be a super light and fun character. Although he kind of is that too. Red Tool is dark in the fact that he only fights with tools, including power tools, making his physical conflicts also appear a lot more gruesome than his Marvel counterpart. And he doesn't have a healing factor, instead he just can't feel pain, due to having a part of his brain removed, which also makes him somehow even more disturbing of a character than Marvel's Deadpool. Pretty impressive actually. Good job, DC. Number 3. Headpool. Headpool is the version of Deadpool from the Marvel Zombieverse of Earth 2149. He is aptly named Headpool because in the end, that is all that's left of him. A head. But a head who is still very much alive, that is, and would still very much like to eat you. This version of Deadpool was also not confined to just existing in the alternate Earth of Earth 2149. He ended up making his way to Earth 616 while he still had most of his full body actually. He ended up making his way to Earth 616 while he still had mostly his full body actually. He was thought to have been completely decimated during a fight there, but it turns out he survived, but simply had lost the rest of his body and was now just a head. Number 2. Deadpool. One of the darkest alternates around, Deadpool is the version of Deadpool who appeared in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. He is from the alternate Earth of 12101, where he was driven even more insane than he already is. A therapist known as Dr. Benjamin Brighton attempted to brainwash Deadpool so he might use him for his own means. However, this failed, and instead ridded Deadpool of his standard inner voices, replacing them with a single voice. This voice in his head seemed fully aware that nothing in the Marvel Universe was actually real, and encouraged Deadpool to free everyone from this fictional prison or fictional reality by killing them all off, which Deadpool then proceeded to do. Basically, Deadpool is from Deadpool's darkest timeline. Number 1. Evil Deadpool. Evil Deadpool is an alternate Deadpool from the main reality of Earth 616. He is sort of a Franken version of Deadpool, who was created by the deranged and psychotic Dr. Ella Whitby. Ella Whitby accidentally helped to create him from storing bits and pieces of Deadpool's body, which had been lost throughout his life while he fought. She collected these because she was obsessed with Deadpool. She was also madly in love with Wade. Though they were stored in her fridge, they were likely part of her shrine of collectibles of Deadpool. In the end, Deadpool found these parts in her fridge and tossed them out. As they thought in the garbage bag he disposed of them in, they came to life and rejoined together to create Evil Deadpool. A version of Deadpool that is evil and just an all-around complete jerk for the sake of being one, whose fighting skills rival the real Deadpool and who also has a backwards arm, which actually proves to be surprisingly useful in fights for him.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Deadpool Kid. Wade in the Wild West. Sign me up. Wade Wilson of Earth 1108 made his first appearance in Deadpool Merc with a Mouth issue 7. Now when we meet him, he's wanted for bank robbery, arson, software piracy, and of course stampeding pygmy goats through an orphanage, you know, everyday things that we always do. And then even in the dusty days, Deadpool still finds a way to cause trouble. He would constantly boast about him wanting to take over the town, and he had his sights set on Sheriff Fury and bounty hunter Logan. After getting shot in the head by Earth 616 Deadpool, our main Deadpool, the Kid went down. But he didn't stay down, of course. He survived and was next seen alongside Deadpool in the hunt for evil Deadpools in the universe. Number 9. Kidpool. Similar name, but much different. Kidpool comes from Earth 10330. Now he made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Core issue 2, and he started his days out as a student of the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys. Now due to his abrasive personality, he of course didn't fit in with the other super kids, so he was lonely most of the time. Now one day he was sent to detention with Scott Summers, and Wade convinced Scott that they should both break out and go to prom instead. I agree, I mean detention during prom, come on, that's just cruel. But in order to convince Scotty Boy to be a rebel, Wade promised him he'd help Scott get with Jean Grey. That ought to do the trick. While at prom, Kidpool caused trouble and even fought Logan. It was a hot mess. Mistress Storm stopped the fight and Kidpool was on his way out when Deadpool arrived and also recruited this Kidpool. And before we continue with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. It helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thanks for your support. Now let's get right back to this video. Number 8, Deadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Wade to Dr. Ben Brighton, aka Psycho Man, in an attempt to cure Wade. Now they wanted him to shut down all these voices in Wade's head, but he didn't do that. He actually did the opposite. Wade was now encouraged to kill everybody in the Marvel Universe. And he started out by going after the Fantastic Four. Reed and the Thing were toast in just a couple of pages. Sue Storm held Deadpool off by making his head explode, but once he healed, she was next to go. Deadpool stole a device from Reed Richards that he used to take down the Watcher. So right off the bat, things get ugly. Number 7, Evil Deadpool. Keeping those sinister vibes going, Evil Deadpool is from our 616 main universe. He actually came to life during the pages of Deadpool Volume 4, issue 44. Now it actually all started with Ella Whitby. She was a psychiatrist who was obsessed with Wade Wilson. She was so obsessed that she would keep body parts that he lost over time. She would collect parts of him and then keep them in her freezer. You know, right next to the ice packs, of course. So when Deadpool found out about this creepy old cold collection, he threw them all in the dumpster. He just got rid of them. But that was a mistake because once those body parts thawed out, they fused together to make another evil Deadpool. Just the smell of that freezer alone, I would have tapped out by day 3. Number 6, Wolverine Pool. This next one is a total badass, one of my favorites if you ask me. Brief, but definitely memorable. First appearing in Cable in Deadpool issue 46, 6, we see Wade Wilson after he's undergone the Weapon X program. He has his skeleton bonded with adamantium, and then he's recruited by Deadpool to take on the evil Deadpool core members. So he joined the battle and killed Deadpool Pulp, but during the fight, main Wade tossed a grenade full of bugs at Wolverine Pool. So the grenade went off and the bugs chewed at Wade's skin, just chewed him apart until nothing was left over except the adamantium skeleton and claws. Definitely the grossest way to go out, that's for sure. Number 5, Death Mask. While I mentioned a botched surgery earlier with Wade, this next one went exactly as planned. On Earth 11683, Reed Richards was able to remove a lethal brain tumor from Wade's head, so now he was better off than ever. No evil voices, and now he was actually a genius. But did he change the world one revolutionary invention at a time? Nope, he was a master criminal. But still, he's smart, I don't know. He built an empire. Wade went by the name Death Mask and killed that world's Victor Von Doom, and his outfit was actually a red version of Doom's. It was pretty sweet, not gonna lie. Even after Death Mask was beaten by our main Deadpool, it didn't end there. Death Mask made a deal with Mephisto in order to release monsters on Earth, one of those monsters being Infernal Hulk. Ouch. Number 4, Dogpool. Wade Wilson of Earth 103173, aka Dogpool, made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Core issue 3. Now Wilson was a dog being used as a test subject for Mascara X, this hot new product that could replenish itself after just one use. How beautiful and lovely and convenient, might I add. Now this version obviously is inspired from real life animal testing and abuse that happens, so it's pretty sweet when Wilson gets superpowers. Now they thought the dog didn't make it after a test, his body turned all corpse-like, so they got rid of it. But those regenerative abilities brought this pet back to life. A circus truck just ended up going by and seeing this immortal dog, and then Deadpool became the starring act of their show. Come and see the death-defying hound, what a headline. He was working there until Deadpool came and also recruited him for the Deadpool Corps. Number 3, Deadman Wade. Coming from the Age of Apocalypse storyline on Earth 295, Deadman Wade was initially part of Apocalypse's Pale Riders. Danny Moonstar would just torture him non-stop. That was his whole thing. But that's gotta be a bit distracting, right? While the Riders were seeking out Avalon, Damask was so annoyed by the torture and the sounds that she strangled Moonstar to death. She just couldn't take it anymore. It's like when my sister would sing Taylor Swift, I'm like, a 4-hour drive, come on. So Deadman Wade wasn't too happy at this point, but when they finally arrived to Avalon, Wade's attack on innocent people was so much that Nightcrawler deemed it necessary to end his life. And he did so by teleporting away whilst grabbing his head. If you want to see Deadman Wade in more agony, begin so with Excalibur issue 1. Number 2, Ultimate Deadpool. Wade E. Wilson from the Ultimate Comic Run, Earth 1610 that is, made his first appearance at Ultimate Spider-Man issue 91. Now he had a pretty rough time when it comes to the Ultimates. The Ultimates are a different story, different origins, but Wade's is still bad. See, in Ultimate Spider-Man, Wade E. Wilson gets recruited to hunt down mutants on live television, which sounds like a pretty cool gig, but the government figured this is what the people want, and honestly, they're not too far off. People love tuning in. This is like the hot show. It's the talk of the town. And his appearance is even more shocking once Spider-Man unmasks him, and the fact that he does so on live television causes Wadey to go nuts. And it was even worse than that because Spider-Man made him feel horrible for how he looked. He said his face smelled like a KFC dumpster on a hot day. What a roast. Oh my god, Spider-Man, relax. And also in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 92, Spider-Man is about to be unmasked himself, but Deadpool prevents it from happening. He says to respect the mask. How ironic. Number 1, Lady Deadpool. We just met Lady Loki and she kind of stole the entire show on Disney+, so we gotta end this list with Lady Deadpool. Wanda Wilson from Earth 3010 made her first appearance in Deadpool Merc the Mouth issue 7. Now this version of Deadpool cared, dare I say. She wanted to at least feel like she belonged and was part of a bigger, more important movement. So she led an assault force against the crooked General America, which was an evil Captain America in that world, and then she eventually found her place leading the Deadpool Corps, that team I've been mentioning throughout this entire list. In fact, Lady Deadpool was the one to tip off our main 616 Wade on the whole operation. Wade actually tossed Headpool at General America, but then he bit his arm off. Headpool was from the zombie universe, so Wade had to take the General's infected arm with him after he left Wanda's Earth. All the blood, all the arms, all the Deadpools, all the fun.
At number 10 is X-24. In the dark and twisted multiverse of comic book adaptations, we've seen our fair share of alternate versions of our beloved characters, but in the film Logan, this sinister creation was engineered to be the ultimate unaliving machine, a nightmarish mirror image of Wolverine himself. Unlike the brooding and complex Logan we know, X-24 is a ruthless berserker devoid of any moral compass. See, he wasn't played by inner demons or a sense of duty. He was a pure force of destruction. And what made him even more terrifying terrifying was his relentless pursuit of Laura, or X-23, who shared Wolverine's blood. Every time X-24 appeared on screen, a wave of anxiety washed over myself, knowing that this unrelenting monster would stop at nothing to achieve its grisly objectives. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. At number 9 is Zombieverse Wolverine. In the eerie expanse of the multiverse, we stumble upon a spine-chilling variant of Wolverine, who's a zombie. Venture into Earth Z, or Earth 2149, a nightmarish realm in which this gruesome iteration, Wolverine's fate, takes a sinister twist as he, along with a select other few heroes, feast upon the remains of the cosmic entity Galactus. But it doesn't stop there. The unholy banquet bestows upon zombie Wolverine the dreaded power cosmic. Damn, picture it. The relentless savagery of Wolverine as a zombie, fueled with the limitless might of the cosmos. It's a ghastly unison that transforms Logan into a nightmarish force, a walking apocalypse with claws and a cosmic energy at his disposal. This incarnation of Wolverine sends shivers down the spine, reminding us that within the multiverse, terror knows no bounds. At number 8 is the Lord of the Vampires. This spine-chilling incarnation of Logan emerged from the pages of the What If series, specifically in Volume 2, Issue 24. Here, a fateful turn of events sees Storm choosing to stay by Dracula's side during the X-Men's clash with the infamous Vampire Lord. The consequences were world-altering, as Wolverine and his fellow heroes fell victim to capture and transformation. Yet the adamantium-laced warrior's indomitable will proved way too powerful for Dracula's control. In a gruesome twist, Wolverine overcame the Vampire Lord, seizing the throne and becoming the new Lord of the Vampires. Picture Wolverine with fangs, ruling over legions of bloodsuckers, and capable of enslaving anyone with a single bite. It's a nightmarish blend of clawed ferocity and a moral bloodlust that would haunt even the most fearless of souls. At number 7 is Cancerverse Wolverine. Cancerverse Wolverine is a denizen of Earth 10011, remains a shadowy figure in the Marvel Universe. In this eerie reality known as the Cancerverse, the Grim Reaper has been utterly obliterated, and in the absence of the unalive, paradoxically, it gave birth to a cosmic nightmare. Cancerverse Wolverine's appearance alone is enough to send shivers down your spine. In a world where mortality is non-existent, life spirals into a grotesque spectacle, a chilling reflection of the importance of balance in the universe. Because in this twisted realm, even a hero like Wolverine becomes a harbinger of terror, a reminder that the natural order of things, no matter how unsettling, always has its rightful place. At number 6 is Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan is a haunting iteration of Wolverine, emerging from Earth 807128. In this chilling reality, the claws of tragedy run deep. See, Logan was once a hero who now carries the crushing weight of guilt upon his adamantium-laced shoulders. Mysterio's sinister dissipation led him down a path of unwitting euthanization, annihilating his fellow X-Men. Time catapults us into a future where Logan has abandoned his iconic alias, opting simply for his first name to escape the specter of his past. But destiny refuses to release his grip. Logan attempts to evade heroics, settling into a family life, yet peril relentlessly pursues him. When the ruthless Hulk gang eliminates his loved ones over the late protection money, Logan's dormant savagery ignites. The descent into vengeance becomes an inescapable plunge, culminating in a gory reckoning that liberates his world from the clutches of the deranged Pappy Banner and his nightmarish clan. In the desolate landscape of Old Man Logan's reality, even heroes succumb to darkness, making it one of the most spine-tingling alternate Wolverines in the multiverse. And at number 5, my personal favorite is Old Man Venom. Enter the Venomverse, where unimaginable transformations await. In this universe, we get to see Old Man Logan devoured by a venom-infested T-Rex. But here's the twist. The symbiote decides that Logan is a superior host and merges with him. The result is Venom Wolverine, or as I like to call him, Old Man Venom, a character oozing with insanity, ethics thrown out the window, and an utter disregard for consequences. Sure, he might have a laundry list of symbiote vulnerabilities, making him marginally less formidable than your typical regenerating Logan, but the sheer terror he instills is undeniable. Venom Wolverine is a monstrous fusion of two iconic characters, delving into a spine-tingling combination of ferocity and chaos. Next time you delve into alternate realities, keep an eye out for this hair-raising incarnation of Wolverine. At number 4 is Wolverine Noir. In the shadowy realms of this alternate universe, we stumble upon Jim Logan, a character shrouded shrouded in mystery and intrigue. This noir iteration of Wolverine takes us on a journey through the Marvel Noirverse, offering a distinctive twist on the iconic mutant. In this iteration, Logan isn't a berserker on the battlefield, but a detective navigating the murky waters of crime. It's a fitting role for a man with heightened senses and a knack for tracking. Wolverine Noir paints a gritty picture of reminiscent of classic noir films, amplifying the eerie ambience that defines this universe. This version delves into Wolverine's past, mirroring the harrowing narrative from his origin series. Raised by a fervently religious father, Jim's childhood is the haunting tale of sermons and strife, shaping his path into the detective he becomes. So while we've seen Logan in countless forms, Jim Logan's chilling incarnation stands out as one of the most intriguing and unsettling alternate versions of this iconic character. At number 3 is Phoenix Wolverine. In the realm of eerie alternate Wolverines, the incarnation known as Phoenix Logan takes a chilling spot on our list. Picture a grim future where Thor ascends to the All-Father status and Loki, the ever-malevolent trickster, decimates humanity just to torment his brother. In this apocalyptic landscape, Wolverine, after his own demise, becomes a new vessel for the awe-inspiring Phoenix Force. With this cosmic power coursing through his adamantium-laced veins, Wolverine exhibits an array of mind-bending abilities, even at one point going as far as to save Loki from the formidable Celestials. However, the terror takes on a different twist when a future iteration of Doctor Doom crosses this Wolverine's path, obliterating him. Yet thanks to the Phoenix Force, his demise is merely a minor setback. To secure Doctor Doom's defeat, Logan willingly sacrifices himself, channeling his power through Thor's mighty Mjolnir in the relentless battle. At number 2 is Akihiro. Akihiro, also known as Daken or Fang, is a chilling alternate version of Wolverine. During the Dark Reign storyline, when Norman Osborn took control of the comics, Daken emerges as a sinister counterpart. See, Osborn had formed Hammer and the Dark Avengers, a team comprised of rebranded villains, as Avengers replacements. While Osborn attempted to recruit original Avengers, most of them declined. Daken, however, joined as Dark Wolverine. Akihiro might not currently be villainous, but during that time, he was a bona fide baddie. What makes him terrifying in the series is his lack of a moral code, even compared to his father, who isn't known for his strength. Daken, like Wolverine, is a highly skilled fighter and assassin, groomed from childhood to be a lethal weapon for Romulus against Logan. This alternate version of Wolverine is a dark reflection of the iconic hero. And at number 1 is Dark Claw. Dark Claw, a fusion of Marvel's Wolverine and DC's Batman from the Amalgam Universe, is undeniably one of the scariest alternate versions of Wolverine. Imagine the brooding intensity of Batman mixed with the raw, animalistic ferocity of Wolverine. It's a chilling combination, and Dark Claw inherits Bruce Wayne's wealth and tragic backstory, ensuring that he's a complex and deeply haunted character. But what truly sets him apart is his adamantium-coated skeleton and healing factor borrowed from Wolverine, obviously. This mending of two iconic, fear-inducing heroes creates a formidable force. Dark Claw embodies the fear of the night, blending the relentless pursuit of justice with the untamed power of Wolverine's regenerative abilities and his claws. Crossing paths with Logan Wayne would send shivers down anyone's spine.